The fluorescent lights of the empty office hummed overhead as Ethan Walker stared at the divorce papers hidden beneath his marketing proposal. He was drowning in debt, in responsibility, in the relentless pressure of raising his daughter alone. Then his boss appeared beside his desk with coffee and a confession that would change everything. What started as innocent advice about online dating spiraled into something neither of them expected: a forbidden attraction, a desperate kiss in the snow, and a choice that could destroy his career or save his broken heart. Subscribe and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The wind rattled the windows of the 20th floor as Ethan Walker rubbed his tired eyes and glanced at the clock. 9:47 p.m. The marketing department had been deserted for hours, leaving only the antiseptic glow of his desk lamp and the relentless hum of the ventilation system to keep him company. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered against the December darkness, indifferent to the chaos of his life unfolding inside this glass tower. He should have been home hours ago. Lily would already be asleep at his sister's apartment, her small body curled around the stuffed astronaut she carried everywhere. The thought sent a familiar spike of guilt through his chest. He was missing another bedtime, another chance to read her favorite book about space exploration, another opportunity to be the father she deserved instead of the exhausted shell of a man he'd become. But the Henderson proposal wasn't going to finish itself, and if he didn't deliver something exceptional by tomorrow morning, he could kiss his chances at the senior marketing position goodbye. And without that promotion, without the salary bump that came with it, he'd never dig himself out of the financial hole his divorce had carved into his life. Ethan took another sip of cold coffee and forced his attention back to the glowing screen. The words blurred together: synergistic brand integration, consumer engagement metrics, multi-platform optimization. Corporate poetry that meant everything and nothing at the same time. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister, Amanda. "Lily's fine. Stop worrying. Focus on your work." He smiled despite himself. Amanda knew him too well. She'd been his lifeline since the divorce finalized 8 months ago, taking Lily on nights like this when deadlines collided with single parenthood. But he hated relying on her, hated admitting he couldn't do this alone. The elevator chimed somewhere down the hall, the sound oddly loud in the empty building. Ethan didn't look up. Probably the night security guard making rounds, or some other desperate soul chained to their desk by ambition or necessity. Footsteps approached. Measured, confident, the sharp click of heels against polished tile. He recognized that rhythm before he saw her. "Still here, Walker?" Ethan's head snapped up. Claire Davenport stood beside his desk, holding 2 paper cups from the coffee shop in the lobby. She wore the same charcoal pantsuit she'd had on during the afternoon meeting, though she'd lost the blazer somewhere, leaving only a crisp white blouse that somehow still looked impeccable after 12 hours. At 36, Claire was the youngest director in the company's history, a fact that everyone knew because she'd earned it through a combination of ruthless competence and an almost supernatural ability to anticipate market trends. She was beautiful in that polished, untouchable way that powerful women often were. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled back in a flawless twist, eyes that could dissect a quarterly report or a person's confidence with equal efficiency. Ethan had worked under her for 2 years and had learned exactly 3 things. She expected perfection, she rewarded results, and she never ever revealed anything personal, which made the coffee cup she extended toward him deeply confusing. "Thought you could use this," Claire said. Her voice was softer than the commanding tone she used in meetings, almost uncertain. "I saw your light still on from downstairs." "Thanks." Ethan accepted the cup, still processing her presence. "I'm just finishing the Henderson proposal. Should have it ready for tomorrow's review." "I know you will." Claire pulled over a chair from the neighboring desk, Sarah's, who'd left at 5:30 sharp like a normal person, and sat down. "You always deliver." The compliment felt strange coming from her, too casual for their usual dynamic. Ethan watched as she took a long sip of her own coffee, her gaze drifting to the windows and the glittering cityscape beyond. "Can I ask you something?" Claire's fingers tapped against the paper cup, a rare display of nervous energy. "Something that has nothing to do with work?" Every instinct told Ethan this was dangerous territory. You didn't get personal with your boss, especially not your brilliant, ambitious, intimidatingly perfect boss. But something in her expression, a vulnerability he'd never seen before, made him nod. Sure. Claire pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward him. What's wrong with this? Ethan leaned forward. It was a dating app profile. The main photo showed Claire in professional attire at some industry event, her expression polite but distant. The bio listed her education, Northwestern, MBA, from Wharton, her position at the company, her interests in strategic thinking and professional development. I've been on this app for 6 months, Claire continued, her voice tight with frustration. I get matches, sure, plenty of them, but the conversations go nowhere. The dates are worse, and I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. Ethan studied the profile more carefully, scrolling through the additional photos. Every single one showed Claire in some professional context, speaking at a conference, accepting an award, posed in front of the company logo. Even her smile looked calculated, practiced. You want my honest opinion? He asked. I wouldn't be showing you this if I didn't. He chose his words carefully. It looks like a LinkedIn profile, not a dating app. Everything here is about your achievements, your credentials. There's nothing that shows who you actually are. Claire's jaw tightened. Those are important things. I worked hard for them. I know, and they're impressive. Ethan gestured to the screen. But would you want to date this person? Because I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing a resume, not a human being. There's no warmth, no personality, nothing that makes me think, I want to spend time with this woman. The silence that followed felt heavy. Ethan wondered if he'd just committed career suicide by insulting his boss's dating profile. But then Claire laughed, a genuine surprise sound that transformed her entire face. God, you're right. She took the phone back, studying it with new eyes. I wrote this like I was applying for a promotion. No wonder I'm only attracting corporate climbers and men who think a good conversation means discussing market volatility. What do you actually like doing? Ethan asked. When you're not here, not working, what makes you happy? Claire seemed genuinely stumped by the question. She stared at her coffee cup for a long moment before answering. I bake bread on Sunday mornings. Real bread, from scratch. I walk along the lake when the weather's decent. I watch old films, noir mostly, the kind with complicated women and moral ambiguity. She paused. I sound boring, don't I? No, Ethan said firmly. You sound real. That's what should be in your profile. Something shifted in Claire's expression, a wall coming down that he hadn't even realized was there. Help me fix it? It wasn't really a request, but it wasn't quite an order either. It existed in some strange in-between space that felt dangerous and intimate all at once. Okay, Ethan heard himself say. They spent the next hour rebuilding Claire's profile from scratch. Ethan made her delete the corporate headshots and scroll through her camera roll until they found something genuine. A candid shot from the company picnic last summer where she'd been sitting in the grass, laughing at something off camera, her hair loose and her expression unguarded. I look messy, Claire protested. You look happy, Ethan countered. You look like someone worth getting to know. He helped her rewrite the bio, stripping away the achievements and replacing them with small, specific details that revealed personality. The sourdough starter she'd named Margaret, her route along the lake that changed with the seasons, her ongoing quest to find the perfect screening of Double Indemnity. They debated every word, argued about comma placement, laughed at inside jokes that formed organically as they worked. It was nearly midnight when they finished. Claire studied the updated profile with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. This is terrifying, she admitted quietly, putting this much of myself out there. That's how it works, Ethan said. The real stuff is always scary. Claire looked up from the phone, her dark eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. The empty office suddenly felt very small, very intimate. The city lights cast shadows across her face, and Ethan noticed details he'd never let himself see before. The slight imperfection of her lipstick, where she'd been chewing her bottom lip, the faint freckles beneath her makeup, the way her fingers trembled slightly against the phone's edge. Can I ask you something else? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yeah. Why are you still single? The question hit harder than it should have. Ethan looked away, back to his computer screen with its half-finished proposal. That's complicated. Everything worth knowing is complicated. He could have deflected, should have deflected. But the late hour and the strange intimacy of the moment loosened something in his chest. My ex-wife left because she said I was too focused on work. Too ambitious, not present enough. The divorce took everything: my savings, my house, my confidence. Now I'm raising my daughter alone, trying to prove I can be the father she needs while also keeping my career from falling apart. And honestly, he laughed bitterly, dating feels like something people with simpler lives get to do. People who haven't already failed at it once. Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful, measured. What's your daughter's name? Lily. She's 8, obsessed with space exploration and convinced she's going to be an astronaut. The thought of his daughter made Ethan smile despite everything. She's the best thing that came out of my marriage, the only thing that makes sense anymore. You talk about her differently, Claire observed. Your whole face changes. She's my whole world. Ethan met Claire's gaze again. Which is why I don't date. I barely have time to be her father. I can't afford to be distracted by... He stopped himself, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting, how Claire's knee was nearly touching his, how her perfume, something subtle and expensive, had replaced the stale office air in his consciousness. By what? Claire prompted, leaning forward slightly. The rational part of Ethan's brain screamed warnings. This was his boss. This was professional suicide. This was every HR violation wrapped into one dangerous moment. But there was something in Claire's expression, a vulnerability, a loneliness that mirrored his own, that made all the logical arguments feel distant and irrelevant. By someone I can't have, he finished quietly. The air between them seemed to crystallize. Claire's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, and Ethan saw the exact moment she understood what he wasn't saying. Color rose in her cheeks, and she sat back slightly, putting a few crucial inches of distance between them. Ethan, I should get back to work, he said quickly, hating himself for the interruption but knowing it was necessary. The Henderson proposal won't finish itself. Claire stood abruptly, smoothing her blouse with hands that weren't quite steady. Right, of course. She picked up her phone, the updated dating profile still glowing on the screen. Thank you for this. For your honesty. Any time. She started to walk away, then paused at the edge of his cubicle. When she turned back, her expression was carefully neutral again, the director's mask sliding back into place. Ethan, for what it's worth, I don't think you failed, at marriage or fatherhood or anything else. Her voice was soft but certain. I think you're doing the hardest job in the world, and you're doing it alone, and that takes more strength than most people will ever need. Before he could respond, she was gone, her footsteps fading down the hallway toward the elevators. Ethan sat frozen for several minutes after she left, his heart pounding against his ribs. Then he forced himself to focus on the proposal, on the words and numbers and strategies that had seemed so important an hour ago. But he couldn't stop thinking about the way Claire had looked at him in that moment before she left. Like he was something more than just another employee. Like he mattered. It was dangerous thinking, stupid thinking. He had work to finish, a daughter to support, a life that was already complicated enough without adding impossible attractions to the mix. But when Ethan finally left the office at 2 a.m, walking through the silent lobby past the night security guard, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between them. Something that couldn't be easily put back in its professional box. The snow had started falling while he was inside, dusting the Chicago streets with white. Ethan pulled his coat tighter and started the long walk to the parking garage, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. His phone buzzed, a text from Claire. Got my first message on the new profile. He seems nice. Thank you again. Ethan stared at the words, fighting down an emotion he had no right to feel. Jealousy, sharp and irrational, and completely inappropriate. He typed back, "That's great. You deserve someone nice." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, what if I don't want nice? What if I want real? Ethan's fingers hovered over the keyboard. 1,000 responses formed and died in his mind. Finally, he wrote, "Sometimes those are the same thing, and sometimes they're not," Claire replied. Then, after a pause, "Good night, Ethan. Good night." He pocketed the phone and continued walking through the snow, the city quiet around him. Somewhere above, the clouds had obscured the stars that Lily loved so much. But Ethan had the strange sense that something was aligning anyway, some cosmic shift he couldn't see but could feel in the electric tension of the night air. It would be 3 more days before he saw Claire again. 3 days of avoiding her in meetings, of keeping his head down and his thoughts focused on work. 3 days of pretending that night in the office hadn't happened, that he hadn't said too much, revealed too much, wanted too much. 3 days before everything changed. As-Sikin. On Thursday morning, Ethan arrived at the office to find a message from Claire's assistant. Ms. Davenport would like to see you in her office at 9 a.m. His stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to establish boundaries, remind him of professional protocols, maybe even recommend he transfer to a different department. He'd crossed a line, and now he'd pay for it. Ethan knocked on her door at exactly 9 o'clock, his palms sweating despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Come in. Claire's office was everything his cubicle wasn't. Spacious, filled with natural light, decorated with tasteful modern art, and a view of the lake that probably cost more in rent than his entire apartment. She sat behind her desk, looking every inch the powerful executive in a navy suit that probably cost more than his car payment. "Close the door," she said. Ethan's heart hammered as he complied. "If this is about the other night, I deleted the app." He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" Claire stood, moving around her desk to perch on its edge, her arms crossed. "The dating app. I deleted it yesterday." "But you said you got a good message. Someone nice." "I did." She studied her manicured nails with intense focus. "I deleted it anyway." The silence stretched between them, loaded with implications neither seemed willing to voice first. "Why?" Ethan finally asked. Claire looked up, her dark eyes intense. "Because I spent 2 days messaging with a perfectly nice investment banker who checks every box on paper. We arranged a coffee date for this weekend, and the entire time I was planning it, all I could think about was whether you'd approve of my outfit choice, whether you'd think my conversation topics were too corporate, whether I was being real enough." Ethan's mouth went dry. "Claire, let me finish." She held up a hand, her voice steady but her fingers trembling. "I'm your boss. I know that. I know all the reasons this is inappropriate and complicated and potentially disastrous for both our careers. I've spent 3 days listing them all in my head, trying to talk myself out of what I'm about to say." "Which is?" Claire took a breath, and Ethan watched her summon the same courage she brought to boardroom presentations and high-stakes negotiations. "That night, you said you were distracted by someone you couldn't have. I need to know if you meant me." The question hung in the air between them like a live wire. Ethan could lie, should lie, could laugh it off as a misunderstanding and preserve the professional relationship they'd built over 2 years. But Claire had helped him rewrite her dating profile with brutal honesty. She'd deleted her armor piece by piece in front of him. She'd asked for real, and real was what she deserved. "Yes," he said simply. "I meant you." Something flashed across Claire's face. Relief, fear, determination. "The Henderson proposal was brilliant, by the way. I read it this morning. You're getting the promotion." The abrupt subject change threw him. Thank you. You start the new position next month, which means I'll no longer be your direct supervisor." Claire's professional mask was back, but Ethan could see the cracks now, the woman underneath. There will still be complications, office politics to navigate, but the power dynamic shifts significantly. Ethan's brain struggled to process what she was implying. "Are you saying, I'm saying that in 3 weeks, when you're officially in a different reporting structure, I'd like to take you to dinner." Claire's voice was calm, but her hands gripped the edge of her desk like a lifeline. Not as colleagues, not as supervisor and employee. As two people who might want to see if this, she gestured between them, is as real as it feels. "Claire, I have a daughter. I'm broke. I'm still processing my divorce. I'm probably the worst possible choice for what? A relationship?" Claire's laugh was sharp. "Ethan, I'm a workaholic who hasn't had a genuine connection with another person in years. I intimidate most men within 5 minutes of meeting them. I built my entire identity around professional success and woke up one day realizing I was lonely in every way that mattered. We're both disasters. Maybe that's exactly why this could work." Ethan stared at her, his carefully constructed walls crumbling. "You're serious?" "Terrifyingly so." She pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them until she was close enough that he could see the pulse jumping in her throat. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know we should probably be sensible and professional and pretend that night didn't happen. But I'm tired of pretending, and I think you are too. She was right. God help him, she was right. 3 weeks, Ethan said. You want to wait 3 weeks? To be appropriate? Yes. Claire's lips curved into a smile that transformed her entire face. To be proper and professional and by the book. And until then? Until then, we do our jobs. We maintain professional boundaries. We don't give anyone reason to question the promotion you earned on merit. She paused. But maybe we can grab coffee sometimes, as colleagues. Perfectly innocent. A perfectly innocent coffee, Ethan repeated, unable to suppress his own smile. Exactly. Claire stepped back, putting professional distance between them again. Now get back to work, Walker. You have a department to transition into, and I have meetings all day. Ethan turned toward the door, his hand on the handle when Claire spoke again. Ethan? He looked back. Thank you, she said softly, for helping me be brave enough to want something real. The next 3 weeks were exquisite torture. Ethan and Claire maintained perfect professionalism at work, but their innocent coffee breaks became the highlight of his days. They'd meet in the lobby cafe or walk to the corner coffee shop, ostensibly discussing work but really learning the 1,000 small details that made up each other's lives. He learned that Claire had been engaged once, 7 years ago, to a man who'd ultimately chosen a less ambitious woman, that she'd poured herself into work as a response to heartbreak and somehow never found her way back out, that her parents had retired to Arizona and called every Sunday without fail, that she was terrified of being ordinary. She learned about his marriage's slow collapse, how he and Jennifer had grown into strangers while living in the same house, about the custody battle that had shredded his savings and his dignity, about Lily's obsession with space that had started when she was 4 and watched a documentary about the Mars rovers, about the way single fatherhood had broken him open and rebuilt him into someone he actually liked. They were careful, professional, but anyone paying attention could see the way they gravitated toward each other in meetings, the way their eyes found each other across crowded rooms, the way their smiles transformed when they thought no one was watching. On the Friday before Ethan's promotion officially took effect, his sister Amanda cornered him in his apartment while Lily was at school. "You're dating someone," she announced, setting down grocery bags in his tiny kitchen. Ethan looked up from his laptop, startled. "What? No, I'm not. Please. You've been whistling. You actually styled your hair this morning. You bought new shoes." Amanda crossed her arms, her expression knowing. "Who is she?" "I'm not dating anyone," Ethan insisted, which was technically true. "And since when do you monitor my shoe purchases?" "Since you've worn the same ratty sneakers for 2 years." She studied him with the piercing attention only a younger sister could muster. "This is good, whatever it is. You seem lighter, like you're actually living instead of just surviving." The observation hit closer than Ethan wanted to admit. It's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Amanda grinned. "When do I get to meet her?" "There's nothing to meet yet, and even if there was, I'd need to talk to Lily first." The smile faded from Amanda's face, replaced by serious concern. "How do you think she'll handle you dating?" It was the question Ethan had been avoiding for 3 weeks. Lily had been 4 when he and Jennifer separated, too young to fully understand, but old enough to feel the seismic shift in her world. She'd adjusted eventually, thrived even, in the simplified routine of just the two of them, but introducing someone new into their carefully balanced ecosystem felt risky. "I don't know," he admitted. "She's never seen me with anyone but her mom. She's also smart and resilient, and she wants you to be happy." Amanda squeezed his shoulder. "Give her some credit. Kids understand more than we think." That evening, while helping Lily with her math homework, Ethan found himself studying his daughter's face. The serious concentration as she worked through fraction problems, the way she chewed her pencil when thinking hard, the spray of freckles across her nose that mirrored his own. "Dad?" Lily looked up, catching him staring. "You okay?" "Yeah, kiddo, just thinking." "About what?" "About how to tell you that I might be falling for someone. About whether I'm ready to risk our perfect little world for the possibility of something more." "About how smart you are," he said instead, tapping her worksheet. "These fractions are tricky. Lily rolled her eyes with all the dramatic flair of an 8-year-old. They're easy. Can I tell you about the Mars helicopter? We learned about it in science today. And Dad, it's so cool. Ethan listened to her enthusiastic explanation of atmospheric pressure and rotorcraft design, letting her passion wash over him. This was his world. These evenings at the kitchen table, this brilliant little person who still needed him for homework and bedtime stories and reassurance that the universe made sense. Was he really ready to change it? His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "One more week. How are you holding up?" Ethan typed back, terrified. "You? Same. But the good kind of terrified. Is there a good kind? There is when what you're afraid of is also what you want most." Ethan stared at the message, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Across the table, Lily had moved on to drawing elaborate spacecraft designs in the margins of her homework. "Hey, Lily," he heard himself say. "What would you think if I started spending time with a friend? Someone new?" She looked up, curious. "Like a play date?" "Sort of, for grown-ups." "Is it a lady friend?" Lily's eyes went wide with 8-year-old delight. "Are you going to get married again?" "Whoa, hold on." Ethan laughed despite his nervousness. "I'm just asking if you'd be okay with me having dinner with someone sometimes. Nothing big." Lily considered this with the gravity of a child who'd learned to navigate her parents' divorce. "Will you still have time for our space nights?" "Always. You're my number one, remember?" "Then I think it's okay." She returned to her drawing, adding fins to a rocket ship. "But she has to like space, that's the rule." Ethan smiled, something tight in his chest loosening. "That seems fair." The following Monday, Ethan walked into his new office. Not Claire's equal, but close enough that the power dynamic had officially shifted. His first act was to text her. "It's official. I'm in the new position." Her response came immediately. "Congratulations. You earned it. Also, are you free Saturday night?" His hands were shaking as he typed, "Yes. There's a small taco place in Wicker Park. Nothing fancy. Real food, real conversation. Sounds perfect." "What time?" 7. "And Ethan?" "I'm nervous too." Saturday arrived with fresh snowfall blanketing Chicago. Ethan stood outside the taco restaurant at 6:55, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on dark jeans and a sweater that Amanda had assured him made him look approachable, but put together. Now he felt ridiculous. This was Claire. Brilliant, successful, intimidating Claire. What was he thinking? But then she appeared around the corner, and Ethan's breath caught. She wore jeans, actual jeans, paired with a simple emerald sweater and a coat that looked warm rather than expensive. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe twist. She looked younger, softer, real. When she spotted him, her face transformed with a smile that erased every doubt. "Hi," she said, slightly breathless from the cold or nervousness or both. "Hi yourself." Ethan couldn't stop staring. "You look not like your boss," Claire supplied with a shy smile. "I was going to say beautiful, but yeah, that too." Color rose in her cheeks. Genuine, unplanned, perfect. "Should we go in? I'm freezing." The restaurant was small and warm, and filled with the scent of spices and corn tortillas. They squeezed into a corner booth, and suddenly all the easy conversations from their coffee breaks evaporated. They were on an actual date, with intention and possibility and all the terrifying potential that implied. "I haven't done this in a long time," Claire admitted, fiddling with her napkin. "First dates, I mean." "Me either. And definitely not with someone who knows exactly how much I procrastinate on expense reports." She laughed, and the tension broke. They ordered food, far too much food, and fell into conversation that flowed like it had in those late-night office hours. They debated the merits of Chicago winters versus literally any other climate. They shared embarrassing stories from their 20s. They talked about ambition and failure and all the ways life never quite turned out how you expected. "Tell me about her," Claire said over halfway demolished plates of enchiladas. "Lily, tell me what she's really like." Something in Ethan's chest expanded at the genuine interest in her voice. "She's extraordinary. Smarter than I was at her age. Hell, smarter than I am now in a lot of ways. She's convinced she's going to NASA, and honestly, I believe her. She has this determination, this certainty about who she is and what she wants. He trailed off, embarrassed by his own enthusiasm. Sorry, I could talk about her for hours. Don't apologize. Claire's expression was soft, open. It's clear how much you love her. It's one of the first things I noticed about you, how you'd light up whenever someone asked about your daughter. Most people at the office talk about their kids like obligations. You talk about Lily like she's the greatest adventure of your life. She is, Ethan said simply. Even on the hard days, even when I'm exhausted and broke and certain I'm failing at this parenting thing, she's still the best part of me. Claire was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns in the condensation on her water glass. My life has been very carefully constructed, she said finally. Every decision calculated for maximum career advancement. I told myself there'd be time for other things later. Marriage, kids, actual human connection. But lately I've been wondering if I made the wrong calculation. If I traded the possibility of moments like this, she gestured between them, for achievements that look impressive on paper but feel hollow at 3 a.m. You're brilliant at what you do, Ethan offered. Being brilliant at your job and being happy aren't the same thing. Claire met his eyes. You taught me that, or reminded me at least. The waitress cleared their plates, and they ordered coffee they didn't really want just to extend the evening. The restaurant slowly emptied around them until they were nearly alone, still talking, still discovering new facets of each other. It was nearly 11 when they finally stepped back outside. The snow had intensified, transforming Chicago into something magical and hushed. Streetlights cast halos through the falling flakes, and their breath formed clouds in the freezing air. They started walking with no particular destination, just reluctant to end the evening. I need to tell you something, Claire said as they passed a bakery window glowing warm in the night. She stopped, turning to face him. I move slowly in relationships. I need that. After what happened before, after building so many walls, she took a breath. I'm not good at vulnerability. I'll probably overthink everything. I might drive you crazy. Claire, but I want this, she continued, her voice stronger now. I want real. I want honest. I want someone who sees me without the title and the achievements and all the armor I've built. And I hope, that might be you. Ethan stepped closer, closing the distance between them until he could see snowflakes caught in her eyelashes. I'm divorced. I'm broke. I come with an 8-year-old daughter and a complicated custody situation, an emotional baggage I'm still unpacking. I can't afford to waste time on things that aren't real either. My life doesn't have room for games or casual dating or anything that's going to hurt Lily if it falls apart. So we're both terrified and damaged and probably going to screw this up somehow? Claire's lips curved into a small smile. Probably. Good. At least we're honest about it. Then she kissed him. It was soft and brief and tasted like coffee and snow. Her lips were cold, but her hand was warm where it curved against his jaw. Ethan's heart stopped and restarted, and for one perfect moment, the entire complicated mess of his life simplified into this. Claire's mouth on his, the snow falling around them, the quiet certainty that something important had just begun. When they pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Claire laughed, surprised and delighted and young. I should get home, she said, but made no move to leave. Probably, Ethan agreed, still holding her. They stood there in the snow for another moment, foreheads nearly touching, before finally, reluctantly separating. Ethan walked Claire to her car, their gloved fingers intertwined, neither ready to fully let go. Text me when you get home? Claire asked. Promise. He watched her climb into her car, watched her drive away into the snowy night, then stood on the sidewalk like an idiot until the taillights disappeared. His phone buzzed before he'd even reached his own car. Claire, that was terrifying and perfect, and I already want to do it again. Is that crazy? Ethan typed back, if it is, we're both crazy. Saturday was amazing. Next time I want to meet Lily. If you're ready. He stared at the message, his heart doing complicated acrobatics. This was real. This was happening. This was Claire wanting to meet his daughter, to be part of his actual life rather than just stolen moments between work obligations. Let me talk to her first. But yes, I want that too. As Ethan drove home through the silent, snow-covered streets, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, terrifying, beautiful hope that maybe, just maybe, his carefully managed life of survival could expand into something that felt like actually living. The story was just beginning, and for the first time since his divorce, Ethan couldn't wait to see what happened next. The conversation with Lily happened on a Tuesday evening, 3 days after that first kiss in the snow. Ethan had rehearsed it a dozen times in his head, trying to find the right words to explain something he barely understood himself. But when the moment came, sitting across from her at their small kitchen table while she constructed an elaborate Lego space station, all his careful planning evaporated. "Remember how I asked if you'd be okay with me spending time with a friend?" he began, watching her snap two pieces together with focused precision. "The lady friend who has to like space," Lily said without looking up. "I remember." "Right. Well, her name is Claire, and she'd really like to meet you, if that's something you'd be comfortable with." Lily's hands stilled. She looked up at him with those sharp, intelligent eyes that sometimes made Ethan feel like she was the adult and he was the child. "Is she your girlfriend?" The word felt strange, too teenage and simple for what was developing between him and Claire, but he nodded. "Yeah, I think so. It's still new, and we're figuring things out, but yes." "Does she make you happy?" Lily asked, her tone serious in the way only an 8-year-old who'd survived her parents' divorce could manage. Ethan considered the question carefully. "She does. She makes me feel like myself again, like I'm more than just your dad or just someone who works all the time. Does that make sense?" Lily nodded slowly, then returned to her Lego construction. "Mom has a boyfriend now, too. His name is Derek, and he's boring. He talks about golf a lot." The information shouldn't have surprised Ethan. Jennifer had been dating for months, but it still sent an odd pang through his chest. Not jealousy exactly. More like the final acknowledgement that their old life was truly over, replaced by something new and still taking shape. "How do you feel about that?" he asked. Lily shrugged with impressive nonchalance. "It's okay. He's nice enough. He doesn't really get why I like space stuff, but he tries." She paused, examining a piece before adding it to her structure. "I told Mom the same thing I'm telling you. As long as I still get my time with you both, and as long as nobody tries to replace either of you, I'm okay with it." Ethan felt his throat tighten. When had his daughter become so wise, so capable of articulating emotional boundaries he'd struggled with for months? "Nobody could ever replace you, kiddo. You know that, right? You're the most important person in my entire universe." "I know, Dad." Lily rolled her eyes with affectionate exasperation. "You tell me like every day. So when do I meet Claire, and what does she do? And how did you meet her? And does she know about the Mars rovers?" The questions tumbled out rapid fire, and Ethan laughed, relieved by her enthusiasm. They spent the next hour talking about Claire, carefully edited details about work, about her love of old movies and bread baking, about how she was smart and kind, and maybe a little nervous about meeting an 8-year-old space expert. "There's a planetarium show at the museum this Saturday," Ethan said finally. "I was thinking maybe we could all go together. You, me, and Claire. What do you think?" Lily's face lit up with genuine excitement. "The new one about exoplanets? Dad, yes! I've been wanting to see that forever." Then her expression turned crafty. "This is a test, isn't it? To see if she can handle a whole day with me talking about planetary systems." "Maybe a little," Ethan admitted with a grin. "Good. If she can't handle that, she's definitely not the right person for our family." Our family. The casual way Lily said it, like Claire was already being evaluated for membership in their tiny 2-person unit, made Ethan's heart twist with love for his pragmatic, generous daughter. He texted Claire that night after Lily was asleep. The response came quickly, as if she'd been waiting. "She said yes?" Claire's message read. "She actually wants to meet me?" "She insists on it. Fair warning, though. She's planning to talk about exoplanets for approximately 3 hours straight. This is apparently a test of your worthiness. I've faced hostile board meetings and skeptical investors. How much harder can an 8-year-old be?" "Famous last words," Ethan typed back, smiling at his phone in the darkness of his bedroom. "Ethan, I'm terrified." "Me too. But the good kind, remember?" "The good kind," she confirmed. "What should I bring? What do kids like? Should I get her something? I don't want to seem like I'm trying to buy her affection, but showing up empty-handed feels wrong too." Ethan could picture Claire pacing her apartment, overthinking every detail with the same intensity she brought to work presentations. Bring yourself, that's enough. Though if you really want to make an impression, Lily's obsessed with anything related to women in space exploration. But seriously, don't stress. Just be you. Just be me. Right. The me who hasn't spent significant time with a child in approximately 15 years. You'll be great. I promise. Saturday arrived cold and bright, the kind of February day where the sun reflected off snow with blinding intensity. Ethan and Lily arrived at the Museum of Science and Industry 15 minutes early, both of them buzzing with nervous energy. Lily had changed her outfit 3 times that morning, finally settling on jeans and her favorite sweatshirt printed with the solar system. She'd insisted on bringing her notebook, the battered spiral where she kept facts and drawings and calculations about space, because Claire should know I'm serious about this stuff. You're fidgeting, Lily observed, watching Ethan check his phone for the 4th time in as many minutes. I am not. You totally are. It's okay to be nervous, Dad. First impressions are important. Shouldn't I be the one telling you that? Probably, Lily agreed with a grin. But you're the one acting like you're about to meet the president. Ethan was about to respond when he spotted Claire walking toward them across the museum's grand entrance hall. She wore dark jeans, boots, and a deep blue coat, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She carried a tote bag and looked genuinely nervous in a way he'd never seen her at work. When their eyes met, Claire's expression transformed into a smile that made Ethan forget the crowds and noise around them. Hi, she said, stopping a few feet away. Hi. Ethan turned to his daughter, whose sharp eyes were cataloging every detail. Claire, this is Lily. Lily, this is Claire. For a moment, both of them seemed frozen, uncertain of the proper protocol. Then Claire crouched down slightly, bringing herself closer to Lily's eye level, a gesture Ethan noticed and appreciated. It's really nice to meet you, Lily. Your dad talks about you constantly. He talks about you too, Lily replied, her tone carefully neutral. He says you're really smart. I don't know about that, but I try. Claire shifted the tote bag. I brought you something. Your dad mentioned you like space exploration, so... She pulled out a hardcover book, its cover showing historical photographs of women in flight suits and lab coats. Lily's eyes went wide. Women of space, pioneers and pathbreakers. She took the book reverently, flipping through pages filled with stories of female astronauts, engineers, and scientists. This is the new edition. It has Mae Jemison and Sally Ride, and oh my gosh, it has a whole chapter on Margaret Hamilton. The programmer who wrote the code for the Apollo missions, Claire said. I read a bit about her when I was picking out the book. Pretty incredible woman. Lily looked up at Claire with an expression Ethan recognized, the spark of genuine interest, the beginning of connection. Most people don't know who Margaret Hamilton is. They think the moon landing was all astronauts and rockets, but the code was just as important. Exactly, Claire agreed. The invisible work that makes everything else possible. Ethan watched the exchange with something warm blooming in his chest. Claire wasn't talking down to Lily or pretending to know more than she did. She was engaging her like an actual person with valid expertise. Should we head to the planetarium? He suggested. The show starts in 20 minutes. They made their way through the museum's corridors, Lily walking between them, already explaining the difference between terrestrial and gas giant exoplanets. Claire listened with focused attention, asking questions that pushed Lily to explain further, to clarify, to teach. So if we found an exoplanet in the habitable zone, Claire said as they climbed the stairs to the planetarium level, that doesn't necessarily mean it has life? Right! Lily's enthusiasm was building. It just means liquid water could theoretically exist on the surface. But you also need the right atmosphere, the right chemistry, protection from radiation. Lucky. She launched into an explanation of biosignatures and spectroscopy that Ethan only half understood. Claire caught his eye over Lily's head, her expression mixing amusement and something that looked like wonder. This was going better than he'd dared hope. The planetarium show was spectacular, a journey through newly discovered exoplanetary systems with visuals that made the audience gasp. Lily sat between them in the darkness, completely absorbed, occasionally whispering corrections or additional facts to Claire, who nodded seriously as if receiving classified intelligence. When the simulated spacecraft approached a planet in the habitable zone of a distant star, the narrator posed the question that haunted all space exploration. Could life exist here? We don't know yet, Lily whispered to Claire, her voice full of frustrated longing. But someday I'm going to help find out. I'm going to work for NASA and study exoplanets, and maybe we'll discover actual aliens. I believe you will, Claire whispered back, and the certainty in her voice made it clear she wasn't just being polite. After the show, they explored the museum's space exhibition. Lily dragged them to every display, providing running commentary that rivaled the official placards. She explained the physics of orbital mechanics using hand gestures and sound effects. She detailed the engineering challenges of each space mission with the precision of someone who'd memorized entire technical manuals. Claire kept pace with her enthusiasm, genuinely engaged rather than just indulgent. When Lily paused at a display about the Mars rovers, Claire asked, "If you could ask the rover one question, what would it be?" Lily considered this seriously. "I'd ask what it's like to be the only conscious thing on an entire planet. Like, does it get lonely? Or is it exciting to explore somewhere no one has ever been?" The question was so unexpectedly philosophical that both adults fell quiet. Claire glanced at Ethan, something soft and impressed in her expression. "That's a beautiful question," Claire said finally. "I think a lot of explorers probably feel that way, excited and lonely at the same time." "Like you have to be brave enough to be alone to discover new things," Lily added, then looked up at Claire with sudden intensity. "Do you ever feel like that? In your job?" Claire seemed genuinely taken aback by the question. She was quiet for a moment, and Ethan watched her choose her words carefully. "Sometimes, yeah. Being in charge can be lonely. You have to make decisions other people might not agree with, and sometimes that means standing apart. But I'm learning that being brave doesn't always mean being alone. Sometimes it means letting people in." Lily nodded as if this made perfect sense. Like Dad. He was really lonely after he and Mom got divorced. But then he started letting on Amanda help more, and me too, even though I'm just a kid. And now he let you in. The simple observation landed with unexpected weight. Ethan felt his throat tighten, and Claire's hand found his, their fingers interlacing briefly before Lily could notice. They had lunch at the museum cafe, Lily monopolizing the conversation with detailed plans for her future NASA career. Claire asked about the requirements for becoming an astronaut, the training process, the physical demands. "You have to be really good at math and science," Lily explained around a bite of her sandwich. "And you have to be able to work in teams and solve problems under pressure. And you can't be too tall, the spacecraft have size limits." "Good thing you're perfect height then," Claire said with a smile. "Exactly. It's like I was made for this." Lily paused, studying Claire with sudden focus. "What about you? What did you want to be when you were my age?" The question seemed to catch Claire off guard. "Honestly, I wanted to be a writer. I used to make up these elaborate stories and fill notebooks with them." "Why didn't you?" Lily asked with the blunt directness only children could pull off. Claire's smile turned rueful. "I guess I decided it wasn't practical. My parents encouraged me to study business, to build a stable career, and I was good at it, so I just kept going in that direction." "Do you ever wish you'd done the writing thing instead?" "Sometimes," Claire admitted. "But then I remind myself that we're allowed to want more than one thing in life. Maybe I'll write someday. When I'm old and retired and have stories worth telling." "You should write them now," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Dad always says that tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so you should do the important things today." Ethan felt his face flush. "I don't think I put it quite that dramatically." "Yes, you do. After Grandma died, you said it all the time. Remember? You said life is short and we should spend it on things that matter." Claire's hand found Ethan's under the table, squeezing gently. The touch said what words couldn't. "Thank you for raising someone this wise, this honest, this remarkable." After lunch, they wandered through the museum's other exhibits. At the genetics display, Lily explained dominant and recessive traits with the same enthusiasm she brought to planetary science. At the physics section, she demonstrated principles of momentum using interactive displays. Claire participated in everything, matching Lily's energy without condescension. When Lily challenged her to a race building the strongest bridge from provided materials, Claire approached it with competitive focus that made Lily giggle. "You're really serious about this." Lily observed as Claire carefully distributed weight across her structure. I don't like losing, Claire admitted, even to formidable opponents. Me either. Lily's grin was pure delight. Dad, Claire gets me. Watching them together, laughing over collapsing bridges, debating the best architectural approach, celebrating when Lily's design held the most weight, Ethan felt something shift fundamentally in his chest. This wasn't just about him and Claire anymore. This was about the three of them, the possibility of something bigger than a romantic relationship. This was about family. By late afternoon, Lily's energy was finally flagging. They made their way back toward the museum entrance, Lily clutching her new book and chattering about everything they'd seen. Can we do this again sometime? Lily asked as they reached the exit. She looked between Ethan and Claire with hopeful eyes. I mean, if you want to, no pressure or anything. Claire crouched down again, bringing herself to Lily's level. I would absolutely love that. Today was one of the best days I've had in a really long time. Really? Because I talked a lot. I know I talk a lot about space stuff. Really, Claire confirmed. You're brilliant and passionate, and you taught me things I never knew. That's pretty special. Lily's smile could have powered the entire museum. Then, with the impulsiveness of childhood, she stepped forward and hugged Claire quickly before pulling back, suddenly shy. Claire looked genuinely moved, her eyes bright. Thank you, Lily. That means a lot. Outside, the winter sun was beginning to set, painting the snow in shades of orange and pink. Ethan walked Claire to her car while Lily examined a snowdrift with scientific interest a few yards away. That was terrifying and wonderful and exhausting, Claire said quietly. Is this what parenting feels like all the time? Pretty much, but you were amazing with her. She's amazing, period. Ethan, she's extraordinary. Claire's voice carried genuine awe. The way she thinks, the questions she asks, the connections she makes, you're raising someone really special. We got lucky, Ethan said. She's smarter than both her parents combined. Claire turned to face him fully, her expression serious. I need you to know something. I meant what I said about moving slowly, about being careful. But today made me realize this isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about her too. And that makes it more important, not less. I know, Ethan said. And I need you to know that Lily's opinion matters a lot. I won't stay in a relationship that doesn't work for her. Good, Claire said firmly. That's exactly what you should do. She deserves a father who prioritizes her well-being over everything else. Hey, Claire, Lily called from her snowdrift investigation. What's your favorite planet? Claire didn't hesitate. Saturn, because it's beautiful and complicated and surrounded by rings that took millions of years to form. Lily nodded approvingly. That's a good answer. Dad's is Mars because it's the one we might actually reach in his lifetime. Mine is Europa because it has an ocean under the ice, and that's where we might find life. Europa is an excellent choice, Claire agreed seriously. They said their goodbyes with promises to do this again soon. As Ethan and Lily walked to their car, Lily slipped her hand into his. I like her, Dad, she said quietly. She doesn't pretend to know things she doesn't, and she actually listens when I talk. And she looked at you the same way you look at me, like you're the most important thing in the world. Ethan's heart clenched. You caught that, huh? I'm observant. It's an important scientific skill. Lily swung their joined hands. Also, she brought me the exact right book. That shows she pays attention. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan's phone rang. Claire's name lit up the screen. Hi, he answered, moving to the living room and curling up on the couch. Hi. I couldn't sleep without telling you. Today was perfect. Lily is perfect. You're perfect. This whole thing is terrifying because I want it so much. Ethan could hear the vulnerability in her voice, the fear underneath the words. I want it too, which is why we need to be smart about this. Agreed. No rushing, no assumptions. We take it one day at a time. Claire paused. But I can already see a future here, Ethan, with you and with her. Is that crazy? If it is, we're both crazy. They talked for over an hour, voices quiet in the late night, sharing thoughts about the day and fears about the future, and the tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd found something worth the risk. Over the following weeks, Claire became a regular part of their lives. She joined them for Sunday dinners at Ethan's apartment, attempting recipes from the cookbook Lily had declared too complicated for Dad, and laughing when they inevitably had to order pizza instead. She attended Lily's school science fair, asking thoughtful questions about everyone's projects with the same seriousness she brought to board meetings. She was careful with boundaries, always checking with Ethan before making plans, never overstepping her role. But gradually, naturally, she wove herself into their routines. Ethan noticed the small ways she adapted, how she'd learned Lily's schedule and avoided calling during homework time, how she always brought her laptop when visiting so Lily would see her working, understanding that adults had responsibilities, how she'd started keeping hair ties in her purse because Lily sometimes needed one for impromptu science experiments. But the real test came in late March, when everything threatened to fall apart. Ethan received the notification on a Wednesday. The summer space camp Lily had been dreaming about for months was accepting applications. The prestigious program offered 2 weeks of intensive STEM education, simulated missions, and meetings with real astronauts. It also cost $4,000. Ethan sat in his car in the office parking garage, staring at the registration website on his phone. $4,000 might as well have been $4 million. After rent, bills, child support payments, and the emergency room visit when Lily had broken her wrist in January, his savings account was nearly empty. He could ask Jennifer to help, but their divorce agreement split extraordinary expenses, and she'd already made it clear she thought space camp was an unnecessary luxury. Amanda would offer, but she was saving for her own wedding, and he couldn't ask her to sacrifice that. The disappointment would crush Lily. She'd been calculating trajectories and studying planetary geology for months in preparation. She'd already told her entire class about it. Ethan closed the browser and rested his forehead against the steering wheel, feeling like a failure all over again. That evening, he had to tell Lily the truth. She took it with devastating maturity, nodding quietly and saying she understood, that money was tight, that there would be other opportunities. But Ethan saw the light dim in her eyes, saw her carefully file away another dream in the category of things she wanted but couldn't have. It broke something in him. 2 days later, Claire showed up at his apartment unannounced. Lily was at Jennifer's for the weekend, leaving Ethan alone with his guilt and frustration. "I heard about the space camp," Claire said without preamble, standing in his doorway with determination in her eyes. "Amanda has a big mouth," Ethan muttered, stepping aside to let her in. "Don't blame her, she's worried about you." Claire followed him to the kitchen, where he'd been nursing a beer and glaring at his laptop. "Ethan, I want to help." "No? You didn't even let me—" "No," he repeated firmly. "I appreciate the offer, but no. Lily is my responsibility. I'm her father. Providing for her is my job, and if I can't do that, then I need to figure something else out." Claire's expression shifted from concern to frustration. "This isn't about your pride or your job as a father. This is about a little girl who deserves an opportunity." "You think I don't know that?" Ethan's voice rose despite his best efforts. "You think I don't lie awake every night feeling like garbage because I can't give her the things she deserves? But accepting money from my girlfriend to send my daughter to camp, do you have any idea how that looks? How that feels?" "It looks like someone who cares about you both wanting to help." Claire's voice matched his volume now. "Why is it so impossible for you to accept that? Why do you have to carry everything alone?" "Because it's all I know how to do." The admission burst out of Ethan before he could stop it. "Because when my marriage fell apart and I lost everything, the only thing that kept me going was knowing I could still be Lily's father, that I could still provide for her, protect her, be what she needed. And if I can't even do that, if I have to rely on other people to give her basic opportunities, then what am I?" The anger drained from Claire's face, replaced by something gentler. "You're human, Ethan. You're someone doing their absolute best in impossible circumstances. And asking for help doesn't make you less of a father. It makes you smart enough to know you can't do everything alone. It's not your problem to solve. Maybe I want it to be." Claire moved closer, her voice dropping. "Maybe I care about both of you enough that her disappointment feels like mine too. Maybe that's what this is becoming, something where we share the hard stuff along with the good stuff." Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to maintain his stubborn independence, but he was so tired of carrying everything alone. So tired of pretending he had it all under control when he was barely keeping his head above water. "I can't let you just pay for it," he said finally. "Even if I wanted to, which I'm not saying I do. I can't let you do that." Claire considered this. What if there was another way? What if I knew someone who runs a scholarship program for kids interested in STEM fields? What if I could put Lily's name forward, let the selection committee decide based on merit? Ethan studied her face, trying to determine if this was real or a careful construction to spare his pride. Does this scholarship program actually exist? It does. Run by a nonprofit I've worked with for years. They fund educational opportunities for promising students. Lily would have to submit an application, write an essay about her goals, provide her grades. It's competitive. She'd have to earn it. The distinction mattered more than Ethan wanted to admit. Lily earning the spot versus accepting charity. And you're sure this is legitimate, not just you finding a way to help anyway? I'm sure, but I won't lie. I'll absolutely recommend her application. I'll tell them about a brilliant 8-year-old who can explain orbital mechanics and asks profound questions about loneliness and exploration, but they'll make the decision based on her qualifications. Ethan felt the resistance crumbling. She'd still have to know you were involved. Then we tell her the truth, that I work with this organization and thought she'd be a perfect candidate, that she'd have to work for it, prove herself. If she gets accepted, it's because she earned it, not because anyone handed it to her. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than crushing Lily's dreams entirely, better than the hollow emptiness in her eyes when she'd said she understood. Okay, Ethan said quietly. Okay, but if she gets rejected, then we deal with that too, together. The words settled between them with weight and promise. Together. That night, they presented the opportunity to Lily, who'd returned from Jennifer's earlier than expected. She listened with growing excitement as Claire explained the scholarship program, the application requirements, the selection process. But there's no guarantee, Claire emphasized. You'd be competing against a lot of qualified candidates. You'd have to write a really compelling essay about why you're passionate about space exploration and what you'd do with the opportunity. Lily's eyes were bright with determination. I can do that. I can write the best essay they've ever read. When's it due? 2 weeks? That's plenty of time. I'll start tonight. She paused, looking between them with sudden seriousness. Thank you, both of you, for believing I can do this. After Lily retreated to her room to start brainstorming, Ethan pulled Claire aside. Thank you, he said quietly, for finding a way that doesn't make me feel like a failure. Claire cupped his face gently. You're not a failure. You're the furthest thing from it. You're a father who loves his daughter enough to swallow his pride when it matters. That's strength, not weakness. They stood there in the dim living room, holding each other while Lily's excited typing echoed from her bedroom. And Ethan realized that Claire had been right. This was what they were becoming, people who shared the hard stuff, who found solutions together, who made each other stronger rather than diminished. The essay Lily produced over the next 2 weeks was remarkable. She wrote about the loneliness of rovers on distant planets and how it connected to her own experience feeling different from other kids who didn't share her passion. She wrote about the women in Claire's book, Margaret Hamilton and Sally Ride and Mae Jemison, and how they'd proven that determination mattered more than fitting in. She wrote about dreams worth chasing even when they seemed impossible. When the acceptance notification came 3 weeks later, Lily screamed so loud the neighbors knocked on the wall. She'd been awarded a full scholarship to the summer space camp based on academic merit and her exceptional essay. I did it! Lily jumped around the apartment, clutching the acceptance letter. I'm going to space camp. Well, not actual space, but almost. Dad, can you believe it? I absolutely can, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. You earned this, kiddo. Every bit of it. Lily launched herself into his arms, and Ethan held his daughter close, feeling the weight of months of stress finally lifting. Over Lily's shoulder, he met Claire's eyes. She was crying quietly, her smile radiant. Later, after Lily had finally exhausted herself and fallen asleep with the acceptance letter clutched in her hand, Ethan found Claire on the apartment's small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Thank you, he said simply, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him. She did it herself. I just opened a door. You did more than that. You gave her hope back. You gave me hope back. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I love you. The words surprised both of them. They'd been careful, moving slowly, not rushing into declarations. But standing there under the Chicago stars, With Lily safe inside and the future suddenly looking brighter, it felt like the only truth that mattered. Claire turned in his arms, her eyes searching his face. "Say that again." "I love you," Ethan repeated, certain now. "I love your strength and your vulnerability and the way you look at my daughter like she's the most fascinating person in the world. I love that you're patient and pushy and you make me want to be braver. I love you." Claire kissed him, deep and sure and full of everything she wasn't saying yet. When they pulled apart, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "Both of you. And that terrifies me because I've never wanted something this much. Never let myself need people this way." "We're pretty terrifying," Ethan agreed with a smile. "One workaholic space nerd and one stubborn single dad. We're a lot to handle. Lucky I'm up for a challenge then." They stood together on the balcony, watching the city lights blur with the stars, both thinking about how far they'd come from that late night in the office. How something that started with a dating profile and a cup of coffee had transformed into this, love and trust, and the tentative construction of something that felt like family. The path ahead was still uncertain, still complicated by logistics and fears, and the careful balance of building a relationship while protecting a child's heart. But for the first time in longer than Ethan could remember, the uncertainty felt like possibility rather than threat. Spring arrived in Chicago with the tentative hope of something fragile being born. The snow melted into gray slush, then disappeared entirely, revealing grass that had forgotten what sunlight felt like. Trees budded along the lakeshore, and the city seemed to shake off winter's heaviness with collective relief. Claire had been part of their lives for 4 months now, and the rhythm they'd found together felt both natural and miraculous. Sunday dinners had evolved into a sacred routine, sometimes at Ethan's cramped apartment, sometimes at Claire's spacious condo with its view of the lake, always with Lily as the center of gravity around which they orbited. But April brought complications neither of them had anticipated. It started with whispers at the office. Ethan noticed it first, colleagues who'd been friendly suddenly finding reasons to end conversations when he approached. Knowing looks exchanged across conference tables. The subtle shift in how people interacted with both him and Claire in professional settings. "People are talking," his coworker Marcus mentioned casually one Tuesday afternoon, leaning against Ethan's desk with calculated nonchalance. "About you in Davenport." Ethan's stomach tightened. "What are they saying?" Marcus shrugged. "That maybe your promotion wasn't entirely about merit. That maybe having the right personal connections matters more than talent." He held up his hands defensively. "I don't believe it, man. You're good at what you do, but you know how office politics work. Once people start speculating." The implication hung between them like poison. Ethan had earned his position. The Henderson proposal alone had proven his capabilities. But perception mattered almost as much as reality in corporate environments. That evening, he met Claire at their usual coffee shop, the neutral ground where they'd had so many crucial conversations. She was looking tense, her professional armor firmly in place. "We need to talk," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "I know. Marcus mentioned the rumors today." Claire's jaw tightened. "It's not just rumors anymore. HR called me in this morning. Nothing official, no accusations, but they wanted to verify the timeline of our relationship relative to your promotion. They were very careful with their words, but the message was clear. They're concerned about the optics." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. "The optics? I earned that position. You know I did. The entire leadership team agreed I was the best candidate." "I know that. You know that. But corporate politics don't care about truth when perception is damaging enough." Claire's fingers drummed against her coffee cup, a rare display of agitation. "They suggested it might be wise for one of us to transfer to a different division, to eliminate any appearance of impropriety." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. "Transfer? You've been in your division for 6 years. You built that entire department from nothing. And you just got promoted after working toward it for 2 years. I'm not asking you to give that up." But Claire's voice wavered slightly, revealing the cost of what she was proposing. "So you'd sacrifice your career instead? For us?" Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Claire, no, absolutely not. I won't let you do that." "It's not your decision to make." Her professional mask cracked slightly, showing the fear underneath. "This is my choice, my career, and I'm trying to protect both of us, from something that could get much worse if we don't handle it carefully. By running away, by letting them force you out of a position you've earned through years of exceptional work? Ethan shook his head. That's not protecting us. That's capitulating to gossip and assumptions. Claire was quiet for a long moment, staring at the table. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I knew this would be complicated. I knew people would talk, but I thought... She stopped, swallowing hard. I thought if we were careful, if we maintained professionalism at work, it would be enough. I was naive. Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. We haven't done anything wrong. We waited until the reporting structure changed. We've been completely transparent. If they have a problem with two consenting adults in a relationship, that's their issue, not ours. It becomes our issue when it affects our careers, our reputations, our ability to do our jobs. Claire's fingers tightened around his. I won't let you be collateral damage in this, Ethan. You have Lily to think about. You can't afford to lose your job or damage your professional reputation. And you can? The question came out sharper than intended. I have savings, options. I've been in this industry long enough that I could find another position. But the words sounded hollow, and they both knew it. Claire's identity was woven into her work, her success, the empire she'd built through sheer determination. They sat in tense silence, both knowing they'd reached a crossroads neither wanted to acknowledge. Outside the coffee shop window, Chicago went about its business, indifferent to the small crisis unfolding in a corner booth. I need to think about this, Claire said finally. We both do. But I'm not making any decisions without talking to you first. We're in this together, remember? Together, Ethan echoed, though the word felt heavier now, weighted with consequences he hadn't fully considered. The conversation haunted Ethan for days. He threw himself into work, trying to prove through sheer competence that his promotion had been legitimate. But he felt eyes on him constantly, judging, speculating, reducing months of hard work to a scandalous office romance. Claire maintained her professional distance at work, but Ethan could see the toll it took. The easy confidence she usually carried seemed diminished, replaced by a wariness that made his chest ache. It all came to a head the following week during a company-wide meeting. The VP of Operations made an announcement about new policies regarding workplace relationships and conflicts of interest. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental, and Ethan felt heat rise in his face as colleagues glanced between him and Claire. After the meeting, Claire's assistant delivered a message. She needed to cancel their plans for that evening. Work emergency. The text was professional, appropriate, and completely unlike the warmth they'd developed in their communications. Ethan knew what was happening. Claire was pulling away, trying to protect them both by creating distance, and it was killing him. He showed up at her office anyway that evening, after most people had left for the day. Claire looked up from her laptop, surprise and something that might have been relief crossing her face. I said I had to cancel, she began. I know what you said. I also know what you're doing, and I'm not letting you do it alone. Ethan closed the door behind him, maintaining professional distance, but letting his voice carry the emotion he couldn't show at work. We're supposed to be facing this together, remember? That's what you told me when the scholarship thing happened, that we handle the hard stuff together. Claire's professional mask crumbled. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need partnership. I need you to stop making unilateral decisions about our relationship because you think you're sparing me something. Ethan moved closer, his voice softening. Claire, I love you. That means I get a say in how we handle this, even when it's complicated and messy and potentially damaging to both our careers. I'm scared, she admitted, the vulnerability in her voice cutting through all pretense. I'm scared that I'm going to cost you everything you've worked for, that Lily will suffer because her father's girlfriend created an impossible situation, that I'm being selfish by not walking away when that would solve everything. Walking away wouldn't solve anything. It would just make us both miserable while the gossip continues anyway. Ethan sat on the edge of her desk, close enough to touch but not quite closing the distance. What if we did the opposite? What if instead of hiding or running, we were completely transparent? Claire looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. What do you mean? I mean, we tell our story. The real timeline, the actual facts. We go to HR together. We lay out exactly how our relationship developed, when it started, how we've maintained professional boundaries. We stop letting other people control the narrative. That's a huge risk. It could backfire spectacularly. Maybe. But isn't pretending and hiding and letting them speculate an even bigger risk? Ethan finally reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. I spent too many years in a marriage where we avoided real conversations, where we let problems fester because addressing them felt too hard. I'm not doing that again. Not with you. Claire stood, closing the distance between them fully now. You realize this could get worse before it gets better? That people might not believe us or care about the truth? I know, but at least we'd be facing it honestly, together, instead of letting fear make our decisions. She kissed him then, soft and brief, but full of gratitude and love and determination. When she pulled back, something had shifted in her expression, the executive decisiveness returning, but tempered now with vulnerability. Okay, she said, we do this your way, full transparency, and if it blows up in our faces, at least we'll go down fighting. The meeting with HR was scheduled for the following Monday. They arrived together, a united front, and spent 90 minutes walking through every detail of their relationship. From the late night in the office working on Claire's dating profile, to their first date after Ethan's promotion was finalized, to the careful boundaries they'd maintained at work. The HR director, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd been with the company for 15 years, listened with professional neutrality. She asked pointed questions about the timing, about whether Claire had any influence over Ethan's promotion, about how they planned to manage potential conflicts of interest going forward. Here's what I know, Patricia said when they'd finished. Office romances happen. They're not against company policy as long as they're properly disclosed and don't create conflicts of interest. The problem isn't that you're in a relationship. The problem is that people perceive impropriety, and perception affects team morale and trust. So what do we do? Claire asked. Patricia considered this. You continue to be transparent. You maintain professional boundaries at work, and you give people time to see that your relationship doesn't affect your professional judgment. She paused. It would also help if Mr. Walker continues to excel in his new position, proving that the promotion was merited. And Ms. Davenport, you might consider being more vocal about the selection process, the other candidates who were considered, the metrics that led to the decision. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was workable. They left the meeting feeling simultaneously lighter and more burdened. Lighter because they'd been honest, burdened because they now had to prove themselves continuously under extra scrutiny. That Sunday, Claire joined them for dinner at Ethan's apartment. Lily had been making pasta from scratch, a skill she'd learned from watching cooking shows with an intensity usually reserved for space documentaries, and the kitchen was covered in flour. Claire, Lily greeted her with a flowery hug. Perfect timing. I need someone to test my carbonara. Dad's taste buds are unreliable. My taste buds are perfectly reliable, Ethan protested. You think ketchup is a vegetable. Your opinion is invalid. Lily turned back to Claire with serious eyes. I used real Parmigiano Reggiano like the recipe said. No cheap substitutes. Claire sampled the pasta with appropriate ceremony, her expression thoughtful. This is legitimately excellent, Lily. Better than restaurants I've paid way too much money at. Lily beamed with pride. Cooking is just chemistry. If you follow the ratios and understand the reactions, it works. They ate dinner together at the small kitchen table, Lily dominating the conversation with updates about space camp preparations and a lengthy explanation of why Pluto deserved better than its planetary demotion. Claire and Ethan exchanged glances across the table, both thinking about the HR meeting, about the complications of their relationship, about whether they should share any of it with Lily. After dinner, while Lily was absorbed in building a detailed model of the International Space Station from a kit Claire had brought her, Ethan pulled Claire onto the apartment's small balcony. We should tell her, he said quietly, about the work situation. Not all the details, but she's perceptive. She'll know something's wrong. Claire leaned against the railing, looking out at the city lights. What would we even say? Hey, Lily, some people at work think your dad and I are unprofessional for dating, and it might affect both our careers? Maybe something less dramatic, but she deserves honesty. We've built this relationship on being real with each other. That has to include her. They went back inside to find Lily studying them with the unnervingly shrewd expression she sometimes wore. Something's wrong, she announced, setting down a tiny plastic solar panel. You've both been weird all evening. Adults always think kids don't notice, but we do. Ethan and Claire exchanged a look. Then Ethan sat down on the couch, gesturing for Lily to join him. Claire settled into the armchair across from them, her posture betraying her nervousness. You're right, Ethan said. Something has been going on. Claire and I have been dealing with some complications at work. Lily's eyes widened. Are they mad that you're dating? Is it like against the rules? It's not against the rules, Claire clarified. But some people at our company think it's inappropriate. They're worried that our personal relationship affects our professional judgment. But that's stupid, Lily said with the blunt certainty of childhood. Dad got his promotion before you were even dating, and you're both really good at your jobs. I've heard you talk about work stuff. You're like super professional. We know that, Ethan said, and we've been working with the company to make sure everyone else knows it too. But we wanted to be honest with you about what's happening because it affects all of us. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she looked at Claire with unexpected intensity. Are you going to break up with Dad because of work stuff? The question hit the room like a bomb. Claire's expression crumpled slightly before she could control it. No, she said firmly. Absolutely not. This is complicated and frustrating, but it's not worth losing what we all have together. Good, Lily said, because you're part of our family now. You come to Sunday dinners, and you know that Dad can't cook, and you bought me the Space Camp scholarship. You earned that scholarship, Claire interrupted gently. I know, but you made it possible. And you actually listen when I talk about orbital mechanics, even though it's probably boring. It's not boring, Claire assured her. And you make Dad happy. Lily looked at her father with the wisdom of a child who'd watched him struggle through divorce and single parenthood. Like really happy. Not just pretend happy. So if people at work have a problem with that, that's their problem, not yours. Ethan felt his throat tighten with emotion. When did you get so wise, kiddo? I've always been wise. You just don't always listen. Lily stood, moving to hug Claire impulsively. Don't let stupid people make you give up on us, okay? Claire held Lily close, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I won't, I promise. The moment crystallized something for all of them. This wasn't just about Ethan and Claire anymore. It was about the small family they'd been building, the connections they'd formed, the way they'd learned to show up for each other even when things got complicated. Over the following weeks, they settled into their new normal. At work, Ethan and Claire maintained scrupulous professionalism. They didn't arrive or leave together. They kept their interactions focused and appropriate, but they also refused to hide or apologize for their relationship. Slowly, the gossip died down. Ethan's work continued to speak for itself. He landed 2 major clients and developed a marketing strategy that exceeded all projections. Claire's department hit record-breaking numbers, proving that personal relationships hadn't compromised her judgment or focus. The whispers didn't disappear entirely, but they lost their vicious edge, fading into the background noise of office dynamics. But just as the work situation stabilized, a new complication emerged from an unexpected direction. Jennifer, Ethan's ex-wife, requested a meeting. Not about custody or logistics, but specifically about Claire. They met at a coffee shop halfway between their apartments, the same neutral ground where they'd negotiated the divorce details 2 years earlier. Jennifer looked well, healthier than during their marriage, her hair shorter, her expression more relaxed. The boyfriend Lily had mentioned, Derek the golf enthusiast, had apparently been good for her. Thanks for meeting me, Jennifer said, stirring sugar into her latte with careful precision. I know this is weird. Everything about our situation is weird, Ethan replied, trying to keep his tone neutral. What's going on? Jennifer took a breath, as if steeling herself. Lily talks about Claire constantly. Claire this, Claire that. Claire brought me a book. Claire explained why Saturn has rings. It's all I hear. Ethan felt defensive walls rising. Is that a problem? Claire's been nothing but respectful about boundaries. She's never tried to replace you or overstep. I know, Jennifer interrupted. And honestly, that's what I wanted to talk about. Ethan, I've been difficult about you moving on. I know I have. Part of me wanted you to stay stuck, to prove that our divorce was the right decision, that we were incompatible in ways that couldn't be fixed. The admission surprised Ethan into silence. But watching Lily light up when she talks about Claire, seeing how happy you are when you pick Lily up for your weekends, it's made me realize I was being selfish. Jennifer met his eyes directly. Claire is good for Lily. She's good for you. And I wanted to tell you that I'm not going to make this harder than it needs to be. Ethan processed this carefully, looking for the catch. What does that mean exactly? It means I'm not going to object to Claire being around Lily. I'm not going to create custody drama or make your life complicated just because you found someone. Jennifer paused. It also means I think we should consider modifying our custody agreement. Ethan's heart rate spiked. Why? Because Derek and I are getting serious. We're talking about moving in together, maybe getting engaged. And because Lily is getting older and I think she should have more say in how time gets divided. Jennifer's expression softened. She loves you, Ethan. She talks about space camp constantly, about cooking experiments with Claire, about your Sunday dinners. She's thriving in your world in ways she never quite did in ours. The words should have felt like vindication, but instead Ethan just felt sad. Sad for the marriage they couldn't save, for the family structure that had splintered, for all the ways they'd both failed before learning how to do better. I'm not trying to take her from you, he said quietly. I know, and I'm not giving up my time with her either, but maybe we could be more flexible. Let her have more input. Stop treating custody like a competition and start treating it like what's actually best for our daughter. Jennifer smiled and it reached her eyes. She told me last week that she has two families now, the one with me and Derek and the one with you and Claire. And instead of being threatened by that, I realized she's right. That's healthier than trying to force her to choose sides. They talked for another hour, working through logistics and agreeing to revisit the custody schedule with Lily's input. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Their history was too complicated for that, but it was progress. Real progress towards something that looked like actual co-parenting instead of managed hostility. When Ethan told Claire about the meeting that evening, she listened with characteristic focus, asking thoughtful questions about Jennifer's motivations and what it meant for their future. How do you feel about it? She asked finally. Ethan considered the question. Relieved, grateful, still a little suspicious because years of contentious divorce don't just evaporate overnight, but mostly hopeful. It feels like maybe all the pieces are finally falling into place. Claire smiled, but something in her expression seemed distant. That's good, really good. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But she wouldn't meet his eyes, and Ethan knew that tell by now. Claire, talk to me. She was quiet for a long moment, then stood and moved to the window of her condo, looking out at the lake stretched beneath the darkening sky. I've been thinking about what Lily said, about me being part of your family. You are part of our family. But what does that actually mean? Claire turned to face him, her expression vulnerable in a way that still surprised him despite months together. We've been dating for 4 months. We say we love each other. But we haven't really talked about what comes next, where this is going, whether I'm just your girlfriend who comes to Sunday dinners, or whether we're building towards something more permanent. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. What do you want it to be? I want... Claire stopped, struggling with words in a way she rarely did. I want to wake up with you. I want my bathroom to have Lily's space-themed toothbrush next to mine. I want to argue about dinner choices and help with homework and be there for the boring everyday moments, not just the special occasions. I want to be woven into your lives so completely that leaving would unravel everything. The admission hung between them, raw and honest and terrifying. But I also know that's asking for a lot, Claire continued. You have Lily to consider, a custody arrangement with Jennifer, a life that's carefully balanced and works. Maybe I'm being selfish for wanting to disrupt that. Ethan stood and crossed to where she stood by the window. He took her hands, holding them firmly, grounding them both. You're not disrupting anything. You're enhancing it, making it fuller and richer and better than it was before. But are you ready for that? For me to move from the periphery to the center? Because I can't keep being the person who shows up for Sunday dinners and special occasions. I'm all in, Ethan, and I need to know if you are too. It was the most honest, vulnerable thing she'd ever said to him, and it deserved an equally honest answer. I'm terrified, Ethan admitted. My last marriage fell apart. I swore I wouldn't do this again, wouldn't risk destabilizing Lily's life for my own happiness. But then you happened, and I realized I wasn't protecting her from risk. I was protecting myself from being vulnerable again. So what does that mean? It means I'm all in too. It means I want you woven into our lives so completely that I can't imagine what they looked like before you. It means, he took a breath, committing fully. It means I want you to move in with us, not tomorrow, not next week, but soon, when it feels right, when Lily's ready. I want us to build a life together, not just visit each other's lives. Claire's eyes filled with tears. You mean that? I've never been more certain of anything. She kissed him then, deep and sure, tasting like salt and hope, and the future they were brave enough to reach for. When they pulled apart, both were crying and laughing simultaneously. We're doing this, Claire said, wonder in her voice. We're actually doing this. We're actually doing this, Ethan confirmed. They stood together by the window as night fell over Chicago, both thinking about the impossible path that had brought them here. From a late-night office conversation about dating profiles to this moment of committed certainty. It hadn't been easy. It had been messy and complicated and full of obstacles neither had anticipated. But it had also been real. And real, they'd learned, was worth fighting for. The conversation about moving in together should have felt like a resolution, a moment where uncertainty crystallized into clear direction. Instead, it opened a door to 1,000 practical questions neither of them had fully considered. They started slowly, testing the waters. Claire began keeping clothes at Ethan's apartment, not just overnight essentials, but actual wardrobe pieces that hung in his closet alongside his work shirts. Her expensive coffee maker appeared on his counter one Sunday morning, quietly claiming territory in the tiny kitchen. Books she was reading accumulated on the nightstand, her reading glasses folded carefully beside them. Ethan's presence in her condo grew similarly organic. His running shoes appeared by her door. His laptop claimed a corner of her dining table. The bathroom cabinet now held his shaving kit alongside her extensive skincare routine. But these were small gestures, trial runs. The real conversation, the logistics of actually combining households, required more courage than either had yet mustered. It was Lily who forced the issue, as she so often did with her characteristic directness. They were at Claire's condo on a rainy May afternoon, all three of them spread across the living room in comfortable chaos. Lily was building an elaborate cardboard model of a Mars habitat, her materials scattered across the coffee table. Ethan was reviewing work documents on his laptop. Claire was attempting to read a novel, but mostly watching them both with quiet contentment. "This is stupid," Lily announced suddenly, not looking up from her construction project. "What's stupid?" Ethan asked absently. "That Claire has this giant apartment with extra bedrooms and we're all squished into our tiny place most of the time. Why don't we just all live here?" The question stopped both adults cold. Ethan's fingers froze over his keyboard. Claire's book lowered slowly. "It's not that simple, kiddo," Ethan began carefully. "Why not?" Lily looked up with those sharp, intelligent eyes that saw through adult evasions. "You and Claire are together. You love each other. Don't think I haven't noticed. She's at our place all the time or we're here all the time. We're basically already living together, just inefficiently." Claire set her book aside completely, sitting forward. "Lily, there are a lot of factors to consider. Your mom, the custody arrangement, your school district. Mom already said she's fine with me spending more time with you guys. She told me last week when I was there. And my school is only like 20 minutes from here instead of 10. That's not a big deal." Lily returned to her model, adding structural supports with focused precision. "I'm just saying it seems silly to keep pretending this is temporary when we all know it's not." After Lily went to bed that night, in the guest room of Claire's condo that had slowly been accumulating more of her belongings, Ethan and Claire sat on the balcony overlooking the lake, both processing the conversation. "She's not wrong," Claire said quietly. "We are doing this inefficiently. I have 2 empty bedrooms here. You're paying rent on a 1-bedroom apartment that barely fits you and Lily. It doesn't make practical sense." "Since when do relationships make practical sense?" Ethan countered, but his tone was gentle, thoughtful rather than defensive. "Since we both became adults with responsibilities and a child to consider." Claire turned to face him in the darkness. "I meant what I said about wanting to be all in, but I also know that moving in together is a huge step, especially with Lily involved. We need to be absolutely certain before we do this." "Are you certain?" The question sat heavy between them. Claire was quiet for a long moment, and Ethan could practically hear her cataloging all the logical arguments, weighing risks against benefits with the analytical mind that made her so good at her job. "Yes," she said finally, "I'm certain that I love you, that I love Lily, that I want to build a life with you both, not just visit it on weekends and Wednesday evenings. I'm certain that waking up without you here feels wrong now, that Sunday dinners aren't special occasions anymore. They're just when we're finally all in the same place at the same time, which should be every day." Ethan reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. "I'm certain too, but I need to talk to Lily properly, not just accept her characteristically blunt assessment, but actually sit down and make sure she understands what this means. The permanence of it. Of course, and I need to talk to Jennifer face to face. Make sure she really is as okay with this as Lily says." They sat together in the darkness, listening to the distant sounds of the city and the closer rhythm of their own breathing. The future they were discussing felt simultaneously terrifying and inevitable. The next evening, Ethan took Lily out for ice cream, their traditional setting for serious conversations. They sat at a small table in the corner of her favorite shop, Lily working on a towering sundae while Ethan nursed a simple vanilla cone. "So," he began, watching her add more hot fudge with focused determination, "you brought up something important yesterday, about all of us living together." Lily didn't look up from her ice cream architecture. "I know what you're going to say, that it's complicated and we need to think it through and make sure I'm really okay with it." "Well, yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm really okay with it," Lily said simply. "Can I have more whipped cream?" Ethan slid the container toward her. "It's a big change, kiddo. If Claire moves in with us, or if we move in with her, it means this is permanent. It means she's not just Dad's girlfriend who visits. She becomes part of our everyday life, part of our family, in a way that's different from how it is now." Lily paused in her whipped cream application, finally meeting his eyes. "Dad, she's already part of our family. She comes to my school events. She knows that I like my sandwiches cut diagonal, not straight across. She texts me pictures of cool space stuff when she finds it. She's not just your girlfriend, she's Claire." The simple statement carried more weight than a lengthy explanation could have. Claire wasn't an add-on to their lives anymore. She was woven into the fabric of their daily existence. "I need to make sure you understand something," Ethan said carefully. "When your mom and I split up, it hurt. I know it hurt you too, and I would never ever put you through that kind of pain again unless I was absolutely certain it wouldn't end the same way." "Is that why you're scared?" Lily asked with her usual directness. "Because you don't want to mess up again?" "Part of it, yeah." Lily considered this, eating a spoonful of ice cream while she thought. "Mrs. Patterson, my science teacher, she says that good scientists learn from failed experiments. You don't stop doing science just because one hypothesis was wrong. You adjust and try again with better data." Ethan couldn't help but smile. "Are you comparing my marriage to a failed science experiment?" "Kind of. You and Mom didn't work because you wanted different things and you weren't honest about it." "That's what you told me, remember? But you and Claire are different. You talk about the hard stuff. You don't pretend to be something you're not. That's better data for the experiment." The logic was so quintessentially Lily, reducing complex emotional situations to testable hypotheses, that Ethan felt his chest fill with love for his extraordinarily wise daughter. "So you're really okay with this? With Claire living with us full time, with all the changes that means?" "Dad, I'm more than okay with it. I want it." Lily's expression turned serious. "I know you worry about me. You always worry about me. But I'm happy. Happier than I was when it was just us, even though just us was pretty good. Claire makes you happy, which makes our home happier. That's good science right there." Ethan reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You're just finally starting to notice." She grinned, the serious moment breaking. "So can we live at Claire's place? Because it has that awesome balcony where I can set up my telescope, and the extra bedroom would be perfect for a homework/science lab situation. I'll talk to Claire about the logistics. And your mom. But yeah, kiddo, I think we can make that work." Lily's face lit up with pure joy. "Can I start planning how to set up my new room? Because I have ideas. A lot of ideas. I'm thinking space theme but sophisticated, not baby stuff. Maybe a star map on the ceiling and..." Ethan listened to her enthusiastic planning, his heart full in a way he hadn't experienced since before the divorce. They were really doing this. They were building something new, something that honored the past's lessons while reaching bravely toward the future. Claire's conversation with Jennifer happened 2 days later, at the same coffee shop where Jennifer had extended her olive branch. Jennifer arrived looking curious and slightly wary, but she greeted Claire with genuine warmth. "Thanks for meeting me," Claire said, her professional poise barely concealing her nervousness. "I know this is probably strange." "Everything about modern family dynamics is strange," Jennifer replied with a slight smile. "But I meant what I told Ethan. I want what's best for Lily. So let's talk." Claire had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times, but now that the moment arrived, all her careful planning evaporated. "Ethan and I are planning to move in together. Well, actually, he and Lily would move in with me. My condo has more space, it's in a good school district, and it makes the most practical sense." Jennifer nodded slowly, processing. "And you wanted to talk to me first before making it official." "I wanted to make sure you understand that I'm not trying to replace you. I would never try to be Lily's mother. You're her mother, and that's sacred and permanent, and nothing I do changes that." "But you want to be an important part of her life," Jennifer filled in. "A permanent part." "Yes," Claire said simply. "I love her. I love both of them. And I want to build a home where Lily feels safe and valued and supported. But I also respect your role and your relationship with her. I need you to know that." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee with thoughtful precision. When she spoke, her voice was careful, but not unkind. "When Ethan and I were married, I always felt like I was competing with his work, with his ambition, with everything except me and Lily. It made me bitter and defensive, and ultimately it destroyed us." Claire felt her stomach tighten, unsure where this was going. "But watching you with Lily at her science fair last month, yeah, I was there, in the back. I saw something different," Jennifer continued. "You weren't trying to prove anything or compete with anyone. You were just present, genuinely interested in what she was explaining, even though it was probably incomprehensible to most adults. And Lily was radiant, so proud to show you her project." "She worked incredibly hard on that volcano model," Claire said softly. "The chemical reactions were genuinely impressive. See, that's what I mean. You actually know what her project was about. Derek thought it was just some science thing." Jennifer smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I'm not always great at connecting with Lily's interests. I try, but space and science aren't my world. They're yours and Ethan's. And maybe that's okay." "You're her mother," Claire repeated. "That bond is irreplaceable." "I know, but I also know that Lily having more people who love her and support her passions isn't a threat to me. It's a gift to her." Jennifer met Claire's eyes directly. "So yes, I'm okay with you moving in together. I'm okay with Lily having a bedroom at your place and spending more time there. As long as we maintain open communication about schedules and decisions, I think this can work." Relief flooded through Claire so intensely she felt lightheaded. "Thank you, really. I know how hard this must be." "It's not that hard, actually," Jennifer interrupted gently. "The hard part was accepting that my marriage to Ethan was over. Accepting that he's happy with you? That's surprisingly easy. You're good for him. You're good for Lily. And maybe that's all that matters." They talked for another hour, working through logistics and establishing ground rules. Jennifer wanted to maintain her regular custody time, but agreed to more flexibility around Lily's activities and preferences. They exchanged phone numbers directly, establishing a communication line that didn't always filter through Ethan. When Claire left the coffee shop, she felt like she'd passed some crucial test she hadn't fully understood. Jennifer's blessing wasn't necessary. They were all adults making their own choices, but it mattered nonetheless. It cleared a path forward that felt less fraught with potential conflict. The actual move happened over 3 weekends in June. Ethan and Lily's apartment was small enough that packing didn't take long, but the emotional weight of it slowed everything down. Each box represented a decision about what to keep, what to donate, what pieces of their old life deserve space in their new one. Lily approached it with characteristic organization, creating detailed inventories and labeling systems that rivaled professional movers. Claire coordinated with her usual executive efficiency, arranging for her office furniture to be moved to storage to make room for Ethan's desk, reorganizing closets to accommodate everyone's belongings. But it was Ethan who struggled most with the transition. Not because he doubted the decision, but because leaving the apartment meant closing a chapter of his life. This small, cramped space had been his refuge after the divorce. The place where he'd learned how to be a single father, where he and Lily had built their own traditions and routines. "It's okay to be sad about leaving," Claire said one evening, finding him standing in the empty apartment after the last box had been loaded. "You built a life here, a good life." "I know. I just feel like I should be more excited, less nostalgic for a place that was basically a glorified storage unit with a kitchen." Claire moved to stand beside him, taking in the empty rooms that suddenly looked smaller without furniture. "This place saved you. It gave you and Lily a fresh start when you needed it. Of course you're going to have feelings about leaving it behind." "When did you get so wise about emotional processing?" "I've been reading parenting books," Claire admitted with a slight smile. "Trying to figure out how to be good at this without overstepping or pretending to know more than I do." The confession touched Ethan deeply. "You're already good at this. You've been good at it since that first day at the museum when you crouched down to Lily's eye level instead of talking down to her." "I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up," Claire said quietly. "That I'll say the wrong thing, or make the wrong decision, or somehow damage the beautiful dynamic you and Lily have built." Ethan turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. "You're not going to mess it up. You're going to be exactly who you are, thoughtful, genuine, willing to learn. That's all any of us can do." They stood together in the empty apartment, both honoring what it had been while reaching toward what came next. Then they turned off the lights for the final time and locked the door behind them, carrying the last pieces toward their new home. The condo transformed gradually from Claire's space to their space. Lily claimed the larger guest bedroom, immediately covering the walls with detailed star maps and posters of female scientists and astronauts. Her telescope found its place on the balcony, pointed toward whatever celestial phenomena currently captured her interest. Ethan's presence filled the spaces Claire had kept carefully neutral, his books on the shelves, his running gear by the door, his coffee preference stocked in the kitchen. The bathroom expanded to accommodate 3 people's morning routines, negotiated with surprising efficiency. But it was the small details that made it feel like home. Lily's homework spread across the dining table each evening, the grocery list on the fridge reflecting 3 people's preferences, the shoe pile by the door that grew exponentially, the soundtrack of their lives together, Lily's enthusiastic explanations, Ethan's terrible singing while cooking, Claire's focused silence while reading. Sunday dinners evolved naturally. Sometimes they cooked together, all 3 of them cramming into the kitchen with varying levels of competence. Sometimes they ordered in and ate on the balcony, watching the sunset over the lake. Sometimes friends joined them, Amanda, Marcus from work, colleagues of Claire's who were becoming friends rather than professional contacts. The first real test came 6 weeks after the move when Lily got sick. Not seriously ill, just a miserable summer cold that left her feverish and cranky and demanding impossible things from the adults in her life. Ethan had dealt with sick Lily many times before, but always alone. Now he had Claire, and navigating shared caregiving revealed new layers of their relationship. Claire approached illness with the same methodical efficiency she brought to everything else, researching symptoms and appropriate treatments with focused intensity. Ethan knew his daughter's specific preferences, how she liked her soup lukewarm, not hot, and preferred ginger ale over anything else when her stomach hurt. They should have been a perfect team. Instead, they kept bumping into each other's rhythms, disagreeing about when to call the doctor, how much medicine was appropriate, whether Lily should rest or be gently encouraged toward normalcy. "You're hovering," Ethan said on the second day, watching Claire take Lily's temperature for the 3rd time in 2 hours. "I'm monitoring," Claire countered. "Her fever spiked earlier. I want to make sure it's not getting worse." "She's fine. This is normal sick kid stuff. You don't need to track it like a data set." Claire's expression tightened. "I'm trying to help. I'm trying to be useful instead of just standing here feeling helpless." The vulnerability in her voice stopped Ethan's frustration cold. "You are helping, but Claire, you don't have to fix this. Sometimes kids just get sick and you ride it out." "I don't know how to do that," Claire admitted quietly. "I don't know how to be present with suffering without trying to solve it. That's not who I am." From her blanket cocoon on the couch, Lily's voice emerged hoarse but amused. "You two are both being weird. Dad, stop being territorial about sick care. Claire, stop acting like this is a crisis requiring executive intervention. I have a cold. It sucks. But arguing about it doesn't make me feel better. Both adults had the grace to look sheepish. Claire sat down on the edge of the couch, gently brushing hair from Lily's feverish forehead. You're right. I'm sorry. I just hate seeing you feel bad and not being able to make it better. You are making it better, Lily said. You brought me that ginger ale I like, even though you had to go to 3 stores to find it. And you set up my laptop so I can watch space documentaries from here. And you're here. That matters. Claire's eyes filled with unexpected tears. Thank you for being patient with me while I figure out how to do this. That's what families do, Lily said simply. They figure stuff out together. The moment crystallized something for all of them. They were a family now, officially and in all the messy, complicated ways that mattered. Not perfect, not always harmonious, but committed to working through the challenges together. By the time Lily recovered, they'd found their rhythm. Claire learned when to step back and let Ethan handle things with practiced familiarity. Ethan learned to make space for Claire's contributions, to accept help without seeing it as a threat to his role as Lily's father. July brought its own tests. Lily left for space camp, 2 weeks of intensive programming that left the condo feeling eerily quiet. Ethan and Claire had been alone together before, but never in the space they now shared as a family. Without Lily's energy filling the rooms, they had to navigate what their relationship looked like as just the two of them. The first few days felt like an extended date. They slept late, had long leisurely breakfasts, made love without worrying about noise or interruption. They went to museums without having to cater to an 8-year-old's specific interests. They had entire conversations without being interrupted by enthusiastic explanations of planetary geology. But by day 5, they both admitted to missing Lily desperately. Her empty bedroom felt wrong. The breakfast table was too quiet without her morning calculations of distances between celestial bodies. The balcony lacked her running commentary on visible stars and planets. We've become those people, Claire said one evening, scrolling through the photos Lily had been sending from camp. Excited selfies with astronaut trainers, proud poses in front of flight simulators, exhausted but exhilarated faces after each day's activities. What people? Ethan asked, looking over her shoulder at the images. The ones whose entire lives revolve around their kid, who can't even enjoy alone time without talking about how much they miss her. Is that a bad thing? Claire considered this, studying a photo of Lily in a spacesuit, her expression pure joy. No, I don't think it is. I think it means we're doing this right. That she's not an obligation we tolerate, but the center of gravity we orbit around. Very astronomical of you, Ethan teased gently. I've been influenced by prolonged exposure to space nerds. Claire set down her phone and turned to face him. Ethan, I need to tell you something. The serious tone made his stomach tighten. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The opposite, actually. I've been offered a position, VP of Strategic Development. It's a huge promotion, more money, more responsibility, more... That's amazing! Ethan pulled her into a hug. Claire, that's incredible. You've been working toward this for years. There's a catch, she said into his shoulder. It would require some travel. Nothing excessive, but probably 1 week a month visiting regional offices, attending conferences, meeting with clients. Ethan pulled back to see her face. And you're worried about how that affects us? The family? I'm worried about leaving you to handle everything alone that week every month. About missing Lily's events or important moments. About being the person who's always half absent because of work demands. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm worried about becoming the version of myself that drove me into workaholism in the first place. Hey, Ethan cupped her face gently. First, you wouldn't be handling it alone. We'd be handling it together. I'd be the primary parent that week, sure, but that's what partnership means. We take turns being the one who steps up. Second, 1 week a month isn't half absent. It's present the other 3 weeks and working hard to provide for the family the 4th week. You really think we could make it work? I know we could. Claire, this is your dream job, the culmination of everything you've built. I'm not going to let you sacrifice that any more than you'd let me sacrifice my career for convenience. He kissed her forehead gently. We're a team. That means we support each other's ambitions, not just our shared domesticity. I love you, Claire said, the words still carrying the wonder of newness despite months of saying them. I love you too. Now call them back and accept that promotion before they change their minds. When Lily returned from space camp, tanned and exhausted and bursting with stories, she barely paused before announcing her next grand plan. "I've decided," she said at dinner that first night back, "that I want to start a science club at school. For kids who like space and chemistry and physics, because there are other nerds out there who need community." "That's a wonderful idea," Claire encouraged. "What would you need to make that happen?" "A faculty advisor, meeting space, maybe some basic supplies for experiments." Lily's mind was clearly already racing ahead to implementation, and I was thinking maybe Claire could come talk to the club sometimes about her job and how she uses analytical thinking and problem solving, because STEM skills aren't just for scientists. Claire looked genuinely touched. "I would be honored to do that." "Good. Because I already told people you would, and they're really excited. Especially after I showed them the picture of you meeting that NASA administrator at your conference." Ethan laughed. "When did you become a publicist for Claire's career?" "When I realized how cool it is to have an adult in my life who does important things and also cares about me. I'm leveraging my connections. That's good networking." Lily grinned. "Besides, representation matters. Girls need to see women in leadership positions who also have normal lives and families." Later, after Lily had retreated to her room to unpack and process 2 weeks of experiences, Claire and Ethan sat on the balcony in comfortable silence. "She's changed," Claire observed. "In just 2 weeks, she seems older somehow." "Space camp will do that. All those possibilities, all those role models, all that validation that her passions aren't weird but valuable." Ethan reached for Claire's hand. "Thank you for making that possible." "She earned it," Claire said automatically, but her smile acknowledged the deeper truth. They'd made it possible together, through the scholarship program, through supporting Lily's application, through building a family structure stable enough that she could reach for opportunities beyond their immediate sphere. The summer evening settled around them, warm and perfect. Somewhere in her room, Lily was probably calculating the trajectory of some distant spacecraft. In the condo around them, the life they'd built hummed with quiet contentment. "I'm happy," Claire said suddenly, as if the realization surprised her. Like, genuinely, completely happy. Not achievement happy or success happy, just peaceful, content. "This is where I'm meant to be happy." Ethan pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Me too. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not just surviving. I'm living, actually living." They sat together as the sun set over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Inside, Lily called out a question about thermal dynamics and dinner leftovers in the same breath. The ordinary chaos of their blended family continued around them, beautiful in its imperfect reality. This was what they'd been building toward. Not grand romantic gestures or perfect moments, but the steady accumulation of shared days that added up to a life. A real life, messy and complicated, and more fulfilling than either had imagined possible. August arrived when the kind of heat that made Chicago feel like a different city entirely. The lake offered little relief, its waters warm and thick, the beaches crowded with people seeking escape from the relentless humidity. But inside their air-conditioned condo, life continued its steady rhythm. Work and school preparation, weekend adventures and weeknight routines, the comfortable mundanity of a family finding its footing. Claire's promotion became official the second week of the month, complete with a celebratory dinner that Lily insisted on planning herself. She'd prepared salmon, only slightly overcooked, with roasted vegetables and a dessert that involved far too much chocolate but tasted like pure joy. The three of them sat around the dining table, toasting with sparkling cider and talking about the future with an ease that still occasionally surprised Ethan. "So when's your first big trip?" Lily asked, wielding her fork with the precision she brought to everything. "For the new job, I mean." "September," Claire said. 5 days in Seattle, meeting with the regional team and touring facilities. It's the first of the monthly trips we talked about." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "That's during the second week of school. Dad, you'll need to handle the permission slip for the field trip to the planetarium. And I have soccer practice Tuesday and Thursday, so someone needs to coordinate carpools." The casual way Lily had absorbed Claire's travel into their logistics made Ethan's chest tighten with pride. She wasn't complaining or worried, just problem-solving, the way she approached everything. "I've got it covered, kiddo," Ethan assured her. Claire will be back Friday night, so she won't miss your game on Saturday. I wouldn't miss it for anything, Claire confirmed. I want to see these legendary soccer skills you've been bragging about. I don't brag. I accurately report my athletic competence. Lily grinned. But yeah, I'm pretty good. Coach says I have excellent spatial awareness, probably from all the planetary trajectory calculations I do. They laughed together, the sound filling the condo with warmth that had nothing to do with the August heat outside. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan and Claire cleaned the kitchen in companionable silence, moving around each other with the practiced choreography of people who'd learned each other's patterns. She's really okay with the travel, Claire observed, drying a plate with focused attention. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for her to say she minds or feels abandoned, but she just adapts. That's Lily. She sees the world as a series of variables to account for. Your travel is just another variable in the equation. Ethan rinsed soap from his hands, then turned to face her. But you know what I think? I think she's okay with it because she knows you're coming back, because we've built something stable enough that temporary absences don't threaten the foundation. When did you become so wise about family dynamics? When I stopped trying to control everything and started trusting the people I love to show up. He pulled her close, ignoring the dish soap still clinging to his shirt. We're going to be fine, better than fine. This is going to work because we're all committed to making it work. Claire rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I'm scared, she admitted quietly, not of the job or the travel, scared that I'm so happy it can't possibly last, that something will come along and destroy this perfect thing we've built. Nothing's going to destroy this, Ethan said with certainty. Not unless we let it, and I'm not planning to let it. But the universe, as it often did, had different plans. The call came on a Wednesday evening in late August. Ethan was reviewing a marketing presentation while Claire helped Lily with her math homework at the dining table. His phone buzzed with an unknown number and he almost ignored it before something made him answer. Mr. Walker? This is Linda Chen from St. Mary's Hospital. We have your mother here. She was brought in this afternoon after a fall. The world tilted. Ethan's mother lived in Phoenix, had lived there since retiring 5 years ago. They talked every few weeks, maintained a cordial if somewhat distant relationship, but she was independent, healthy, only 63 years old. Falls were things that happened to other people's parents. Is she okay? The question came out strangled. She's stable. Hip fracture, possible concussion. We're running tests now, but she's going to need surgery and significant recovery time. Linda's voice was professionally compassionate. She listed you as her emergency contact. Are you able to come? Ethan looked at Claire and Lily, both watching him with concern. I'll be on the next flight out. He hung up and explained the situation in short, clipped sentences, his mind already racing through logistics. Work commitments for the next week. Lily's schedule. The impossibility of leaving everything he'd built here to deal with a crisis 1,000 miles away. Go, Claire said immediately. Pack a bag. I'll book your flight and handle everything here. But you have the presentation tomorrow. And Lily will be absolutely fine, Lily interrupted. Dad, your mom needs you. We've got this. The certainty in their voices cut through his panic. This was what family meant. People who showed up when life got complicated, who didn't hesitate before offering support. 4 hours later, Ethan was on a red-eye to Phoenix, his overnight bag hastily packed, his mind spinning with worry and logistics. Claire had rearranged her morning to drive him to the airport, kissing him goodbye at security with a fierceness that steadied his racing heart. Call me when you land, she'd said. And Ethan, your mom is going to be okay. Focus on her. We'll handle everything else. The hospital in Phoenix was sterile and fluorescent bright when Ethan arrived just after sunrise. His mother looked small in the hospital bed, her usually sharp features softened by pain medication. She'd always been formidable, a woman who'd raised 2 kids alone after Ethan's father left, who'd built a successful real estate career through sheer determination. Seeing her vulnerable shook something fundamental in Ethan's understanding of the world. You didn't have to come all this way, Margaret Walker said when she saw him, but her relief was obvious. Of course I did. You're my mom. Ethan pulled a chair close to her bedside, taking her hand carefully. What happened? Stupid accident. I was cleaning the gutters. Yes, I know I should have hired someone. And the ladder shifted. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground and my neighbor's calling an ambulance. She tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. The doctor says I need hip replacement surgery, 6 to 8 weeks of recovery, then physical therapy. I can't go home alone, not for a while. The implication settled over Ethan like a weight. His mother lived alone by choice, valued her independence fiercely, but hip replacement surgery and recovery required help, care, someone present during the vulnerable healing period. "You'll come stay with us," Ethan said, the decision made before he'd fully thought through the logistics. "In Chicago, we have room, and you shouldn't be alone during recovery." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, a sight so rare it shocked him. "I can't impose on you like that. You have Lily, your work, your life, and you're my mother. You raised me alone when Dad left. You put yourself through night school to get your real estate license. You drove me to every soccer practice and debate tournament. You don't get to say you can't impose when you spent 20 years making sure I had what I needed." "You've really grown up," Margaret said softly. "When did that happen?" "Probably when I became a single parent myself and realized how hard you had it." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "You're coming to Chicago. We'll figure out the rest as we go." The conversation with Claire happened that afternoon, Ethan pacing in the hospital corridor while his mother underwent pre-surgical consultations. "She needs to stay with us for at least 2 months, he explained, feeling the weight of the request. "I know we just moved in together, and this is asking a lot, but I can't leave her to recover alone." "Of course she's staying with us," Claire said without hesitation. "Ethan, your mother needs you. We have the space. This isn't even a question." "It's going to be complicated. She can be difficult, stubborn. And having her in our space when we're still figuring out our own rhythms will be an adjustment," Claire finished. "But it's the right thing to do. And honestly, I think Lily would be devastated if you didn't bring her grandmother to recover with us. She's been asking about meeting her for months." Ethan felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "Not in the last 8 hours. You're slipping, Walker." He could hear the smile in her voice. "How's your mom doing?" "Scared, proud, trying not to show either." He leaned against the hospital wall, exhausted. "Surgery's scheduled for tomorrow morning. If all goes well, she can travel by the end of the week. Then we'll get the guest room ready. Lily's already planning to move all her science stuff out of there so your mom can be comfortable." The surgery went smoothly, and by Sunday, Margaret was cleared for travel with strict instructions about medication, physical therapy, and limitations. The flight back to Chicago was difficult. His mother hated being dependent, hated the wheelchair assistance, hated every reminder that her fiercely maintained independence had been compromised. But when they arrived at the condo and Claire greeted them with genuine warmth, Margaret's defensive walls cracked slightly. "Mrs. Walker, I'm Claire. It's wonderful to finally meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Claire had clearly thought about this moment, her greeting warm but not overwhelming. "Call me Margaret, please, and thank you for opening your home to me. I promise I'll be as little trouble as possible." "Your family," Claire said simply. "That's what family does." Then Lily appeared, bursting with barely contained energy. "Grandma, I've heard so much about you. I'm Lily, and I cleared out the guest room for you, but I left some of my favorite space books on the nightstand in case you get bored during recovery. Do you like space? Dad says you like real estate, which is kind of like planetary exploration if you think about it, because you're both about discovering and evaluating properties." Margaret laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time since her fall. "You must be the brilliant granddaughter I hear about constantly. Your father's right. You do talk as fast as you think." "Is that a bad thing?" "It's the best thing. Smart people should never apologize for their brains." Margaret looked at Ethan with surprise and approval. "You've done well, really well." The first week was an adjustment for everyone. Margaret insisted on being independent beyond what her recovery allowed, trying to navigate the condo without her walker and refusing pain medication when she clearly needed it. Claire approached the situation with characteristic problem solving, researching recovery protocols and setting up a physical therapy schedule. But it was Lily who broke through Margaret's stubborn pride. She'd knocked on Margaret's bedroom door one evening, carrying a book and looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "Can I come in? I thought maybe you'd like company." "Recovery sounds boring." Margaret had gestured her inside, and Lily had settled on the floor beside the bed, launching into an explanation of her current obsession, Europa's subsurface ocean and its potential for harboring life. From the kitchen, Ethan and Claire could hear the conversation flowing, Lily's enthusiasm gradually drawing Margaret into genuine engagement. By the time they checked in 20 minutes later, Margaret was asking questions and Lily was sketching diagrams, both completely absorbed. "Your daughter is remarkable," Margaret said later, after Lily had gone to bed. She sat at the dining table with Ethan and Claire, moving more comfortably now with each passing day. "Brilliant and kind. That's a rare combination." "She gets the brilliant from you," Ethan said. "You were always pushing me to think critically, to ask questions." Margaret turned to Claire with assessing eyes. "And you? You're different from what I expected." "Different how?" Claire asked, unfazed by the scrutiny. "I thought you'd be cold. Ethan mentioned you were his boss, very successful, very driven. I imagined someone who saw family as an obligation rather than a choice." Margaret's expression softened. "But I've watched you with Lily this week, the way you help with homework without taking over, the way you encourage her interests without indulging every whim. You're not trying to be her mother, but you're definitely being a parent. That takes wisdom." "I'm learning as I go," Claire admitted. "I didn't grow up imagining myself in this role, but loving them made it important to figure out. That's all any of us can do. Figure it out as we go and hope we don't damage them too badly in the process." Margaret smiled, and Ethan saw his mother truly relax for the first time since the accident. "You've built something good here, all of you together. Don't take that for granted." As August turned to September, their household found its rhythm. Margaret's physical therapy progressed steadily, her independence returning in careful increments. School started, bringing new routines and schedules that required coordination. Claire's first business trip came and went smoothly, Ethan and Lily managing the days without her while Margaret offered occasional assistance and frequent commentary on their domestic efficiency. The science club Lily had proposed launched with enthusiastic attendance. 12 kids who gathered weekly to conduct experiments and discuss everything from rocket propulsion to marine biology. Claire kept her promise to speak to the group, delivering a presentation about strategic thinking and problem-solving that somehow managed to be both age-appropriate and genuinely insightful. Watching from the back of the classroom, Ethan felt a surge of love so intense it bordered on painful. This woman who'd walked into his life through a late-night conversation about dating profiles had become integral to every aspect of his world. She wasn't just his partner, she was Lily's mentor, Margaret's respectful host, a person whose absence would leave holes too vast to fill. That evening, after Margaret had retired early and Lily was absorbed in studying for a test, Ethan found Claire on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker against the darkening sky. "You were amazing today," he said, joining her at the railing. "Those kids were completely captivated. They asked smart questions. Lily's trained them well." Claire leaned into him, her voice thoughtful. "I've been thinking about something your mom said, about not taking this for granted." "What about it?" "We almost didn't happen. If you hadn't been working late that night, if I hadn't asked for your help with my profile, if either of us had been too scared to take the risk, we would have missed this entirely. This life we've built, this family, all of it hinged on a series of improbable choices." Ethan turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "But we did make those choices. We were brave enough to want something real, even when it was complicated and scary. That's not luck, Claire. That's courage." "I want to marry you," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I know we haven't talked about it, and maybe it's too soon, but I can't imagine a future where you're not my husband, where Lily's not legally my daughter in some way that makes our family official in the eyes of the world." Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Are you proposing to me?" "I think I am. I didn't plan it, and I don't have a ring, and this is probably not the romantic moment you deserve." She stopped as Ethan started laughing, pure joy transforming his face. "Claire Davenport, you just proposed to me on our balcony in the most beautifully awkward way possible, and I'm saying yes, absolutely, completely yes." He kissed her then, deep and sure, tasting salt from tears neither was sure belonged to whom. When they pulled apart, both were crying and laughing simultaneously. "We should probably talk to Lily," Claire said, wiping her eyes. "Make sure she's okay with this before we make it official." "I think she'll be okay with it. came Lily's voice from behind them. They turned to find her standing in the balcony doorway, her expression knowing. I heard the whole thing. You're not exactly quiet. How long have you been standing there? Ethan asked. Long enough to know that Claire just proposed and you said yes, which means we're going to be a real official family. Lily's grin was incandescent. Can I be in the wedding? And can we have a space theme? And does this mean Claire will officially be my stepmom? Because that's a terrible word, but I'm willing to accept it for the legal benefits? They pulled her into a hug, all three of them tangled together on the balcony under the stars that Lily loved so much. From inside, Margaret's voice called out, asking what all the noise was about, and they trooped back inside to share the news with her. Margaret's reaction was characteristically practical. About time. I was beginning to think you'd both overthink yourselves out of the obvious solution. But her eyes were bright with happiness as she hugged Claire. Welcome to the family, officially. The wedding was planned for the following spring, a small ceremony with just family and close friends. But before that could happen, they had to navigate the complicated process of formalizing Claire's role in Lily's life. The conversation with Jennifer was surprisingly easy. She agreed to shared legal guardianship, acknowledging that Claire had earned her place in Lily's life through consistency and genuine care. October brought Claire's second business trip and the first real test of their ability to handle her absence. But the week passed smoothly, Ethan and Lily maintaining their routines while Margaret, now moving independently with just a cane, offered assistance and companionship. When Claire returned Friday evening, Lily practically tackled her at the door. You missed the best thing. We dissected owl pellets in science club and I found an entire mouse skeleton, and Mrs. Patterson said it was the most complete specimen she'd seen in years. Claire listened with appropriate enthusiasm while Ethan helped with her luggage, their eyes meeting over Lily's head with shared amusement and love. How's Seattle? He asked later, after Lily had finally exhausted her week's worth of stored information. Productive. Exhausting. I'm good at the job, but I missed home the entire time. She looked around the condo, at Margaret reading in the corner, at Lily's homework spread across the dining table, at the lived-in chaos that marked their space as truly theirs. This is home now, not my condo or your old apartment, this life we've built together. November brought Margaret's return to Phoenix, her recovery complete enough that she could resume her independent life. The farewell was emotional in ways none of them had anticipated. You'll visit? Margaret asked Lily, holding her tight. Of course, and I'll send you pictures of my science experiments. And we can video call every week so I can tell you about space stuff. Margaret turned to Claire, gripping her hands firmly. Take care of them, and let them take care of you. You're stronger together than apart. I know, Claire said softly. Thank you for trusting me with your family. You are my family now, Margaret corrected. Never forget that. After she left, the condo felt quieter, but not empty. They'd absorbed her presence and now carried it forward, the family unit expanding and contracting but remaining fundamentally solid. Winter settled over Chicago with familiar cold, but their home stayed warm. Claire's monthly trips became routine, anticipated and managed with practiced efficiency. Lily's science club thrived, expanding to include kids from other grades. Ethan's career continued its upward trajectory, his work recognized with awards and increasing responsibility. But the real magic was in the small moments: weekend breakfast rituals, homework help sessions, lazy Sunday afternoons where they all pursued separate activities in companionable proximity, movie nights where Lily fell asleep halfway through, curled between them on the couch, early morning runs along the lake while Claire and Lily slept, late-night conversations after Lily went to bed, sharing the small victories and frustrations of their days. February brought a surprise snowstorm that shut down the city. Schools closed, offices sent everyone home, and Chicago ground to a halt under 2 feet of fresh powder. They spent the day building an elaborate snowman on their balcony, or rather, Lily engineered it while Ethan and Claire provided manual labor under her exacting specifications. This needs to be structurally sound, Lily insisted, calculating weight distribution and optimal snow-to-ice ratios. We're not building just any snowman. We're building a scientifically accurate representation of snowman potential. Heaven forbid we build an inaccurate snowman, Claire muttered, but she was laughing as she helped pack snow according to Lily's precise instructions. That evening, while Lily was absorbed in sketching designs for a more aerodynamic sled, Claire pulled a small box from her pocket. I know you already proposed, she said to Ethan, and we're already planning the wedding, but I wanted this to be official, properly official. She opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band, elegant and understated. Marry me, Ethan Walker. Be my husband, my partner, my family. Let's make this official in every way that matters. Ethan's hands shook as he took the ring, sliding it onto his finger where it settled like it had always belonged there. Yes, again, and always, yes. They kissed while snow continued to fall outside, Chicago transforming into something magical and clean. From her spot at the dining table, Lily looked up, smiled to herself, and returned to her sled designs. Some things didn't need commentary. Some moments spoke for themselves. Spring arrived gradually, the city shaking off winter's heaviness with visible relief. Trees budded along the lakeshore. The ice melted from the harbor. People emerged from hibernation, squinting in the unfamiliar sunlight. And on a bright Saturday in April, exactly 1 year after that first museum visit where Claire had met Lily, they gathered with friends and family in a small venue overlooking Lake Michigan. The ceremony was simple, intimate. Amanda served as Claire's maid of honor, while Marcus stood beside Ethan as best man. Margaret had flown in from Phoenix, looking healthy and strong. Jennifer attended with Derek, her presence a testament to how far they'd all come in learning to co-parent gracefully. But it was Lily who stole the show, serving as their ring bearer with characteristic flair. She'd insisted on wearing a dress printed with constellations, and she delivered the rings with a short speech about gravitational attraction and the importance of maintaining stable orbital patterns in relationships. Love is like gravity, she concluded seriously. It's a fundamental force that keeps things together even when chaos tries to pull them apart. Dad and Claire have good gravity, strong enough to hold through the hard stuff. There wasn't a dry eye in the venue by the time she finished. The ceremony itself was brief. They'd written their own vows, standing before their gathered family with hands clasped and hearts open. Ethan spoke first, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Claire, you walked into my life during one of my darkest moments and reminded me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the foundation of real connection. You saw me struggling and offered partnership instead of judgment. You met my daughter and loved her not despite her complexity, but because of it. You built a home with us that feels safer and more genuine than anything I've known. I promise to honor that gift every day, to be your partner in the messy and the beautiful, to support your dreams while building our shared reality, to love you with the same courage you showed in loving us. Claire's turn came, her executive composure cracking as she looked at the man and the life she'd chosen. Ethan, you taught me the difference between being successful and being fulfilled. You showed me that building a life isn't about perfect credentials. It's about showing up honestly, even when it's scary. You trusted me with your daughter's heart, which is the greatest honor I've ever received. I promise to be worthy of that trust, to be present in the small moments and the big ones, to choose us even when work calls or fear whispers, to build a family with you that's defined not by traditional structures, but by authentic love. When the officiant pronounced them married, the kiss they shared was witnessed by everyone who mattered, blood family and chosen family, old friends and new ones, the community they'd built around their unconventional love story. The reception was relaxed, more family gathering than formal event. There was dancing and laughter, terrible toasts and good food. At one point, Ethan found himself standing with Jennifer and Derek, both of them watching Lily explain planetary formation to a captivated group of adults. She's happy, Jennifer said softly. Happier than I've seen her in a long time. You and Claire, you're good for her. We're all good for each other, Ethan replied. And thank you for being gracious about all this, for letting Claire be part of Lily's life without creating obstacles. Jennifer smiled, genuine and warm. She's part of Lily's life because she earned that place. That's all any of us can do. Earn our place in the people we love. As evening fell and the reception wound down, Ethan and Claire found themselves on the venue's balcony, watching the sun set over the lake in shades of orange and gold. We did it, Claire said, leaning into him. We actually did it. You sound surprised. Maybe I am. A year ago, I was a workaholic who'd convinced myself that career success was enough. That personal connection was something other people needed, but I could live without. She turned to face him, her eyes bright. And now I'm married. To someone I love desperately, with a stepdaughter who's smarter than both of us combined, living a life I couldn't have imagined wanting. Any regrets? Not a single one. She kissed him softly. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. But maybe we needed all those years of being wrong before we could recognize right when it finally showed up. Lily appeared beside them, looking tired but happy. Can we go home now? I have school tomorrow and I need to finish my homework on Europa's tidal heating before bed. Of course we can go home, Ethan said, pulling her into a hug. That's the best part of today. We get to go home together. They said their goodbyes to lingering guests, collected their things, and made their way back to the condo that had become the center of their universe. The space that had started as Claire's carefully controlled sanctuary and transformed into something messy and lived in and perfect. That night, after Lily had finished her homework and gone to bed, Ethan and Claire stood together on their balcony one more time. The city stretched out before them, millions of lights representing millions of lives, each one carrying its own stories of love and loss and everything in between. Do you remember that night in the office? Claire asked, when I showed you my dating profile and you told me it looked like a resume. I remember thinking I was committing career suicide by being honest with my boss. I'm so glad you were honest. If you'd told me what I wanted to hear instead of what I needed to hear, none of this would have happened. She rested her head against his shoulder. We wouldn't be here. Married. Happy. Home. Home, Ethan repeated, tasting the word. It meant something different now than it had a year ago. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was this woman beside him, the daughter sleeping in the next room, the life they'd built from courage and honesty and the willingness to be vulnerable. Inside, he could hear Lily's playlist still running softly, some combination of space documentary soundtracks and lo-fi study music. The dishwasher hummed through its cycle. The city breathed around them, indifferent and eternal. They stood together in the spring darkness, two people who'd been brave enough to choose each other, to build something real from the wreckage of past failures and the uncertainty of future challenges. They'd faced office gossip and custody complications, illness and family dynamics, the 1,000 small tests that relationships endured. And they'd survived. More than survived. They'd thrived. They'd created a family that didn't look like traditional models but functioned with love and respect and genuine care. They'd proven that second chances were possible, that happiness wasn't reserved for people who got it right the first time, that vulnerability could be strength instead of weakness. The stars emerged overhead, faint against the city's light pollution, but visible to those who knew where to look. Lily would be out here tomorrow with her telescope, calculating distances and cataloging celestial objects, dreaming of the day she'd explore those distant places herself. But tonight, the only exploration that mattered was the continued discovery of the life they were building together. The small revelations that came from years of showing up, of choosing each other repeatedly, of building trust through consistency rather than grand gestures. What are you thinking about? Claire asked softly. How improbable this all is. How easily we could have missed each other entirely. How grateful I am that we didn't. Me too. She turned in his arms, her face tilted up to his. I love you, Ethan Walker. I love the life we've built and the family we've become. I love that our story started with a bad dating profile and terrible office coffee and became this. I love you too, he said simply, because some truths didn't need elaboration. They kissed under the emerging stars, husband and wife now, partners in every sense that mattered. When they finally went inside, turning off lights and checking on Lily one last time before retreating to their own room, it felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. But really, it was just another day in the ongoing story of their lives together. Not an ending or a beginning, but the beautiful, messy middle where real life happened. Where love wasn't a destination, but a daily choice to show up, be honest, and keep building something worth protecting. As Ethan drifted off to sleep that night, Claire's breathing steady beside him, he thought about the man he'd been a year ago, exhausted, lonely, convinced he had nothing left to offer anyone except his daughter. That man had been surviving, getting through each day with grim determination and no real hope for anything better. This man, the one falling asleep in a home filled with love and laughter and the promise of tomorrow, was living. Actually, fully living, and that made all the difference. In her room, Lily marked another day in her space camp countdown calendar, already planning her future among the stars. In Phoenix, Margaret settled into her own bed, grateful for family that had expanded to include her in ways she hadn't expected. In their own home across the city, Jennifer and Derek talked about the wedding and how beautiful it had been. How right. And in the condo overlooking Lake Michigan, Ethan and Claire slept peacefully, knowing they'd found what so many people spent lifetimes searching for: a love built on truth, a family forged from choice, and a home that felt like safety and possibility combined. The stars continued their ancient dance overhead, indifferent to human dramas playing out below. But if they'd been paying attention, they might have noticed three people in one small corner of Chicago who had figured out something essential: that being brave enough to be real, vulnerable enough to risk heartbreak, and persistent enough to keep showing up was the closest thing to magic the universe offered. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, that was more than enough.